Looks like we are underway, so thank you all for getting here. I know it was a little challenging. I'm going to partially close this door just for sound, or Jamie will do that for us. Obviously, we have a lot of people here and a big agenda, so we can't do it all the way. Yeah, gotta stay open some.
Thank you.
That's good,
Yeah.
thank you. It's gonna open though.
It's fine, it's okay. We can maybe do our work session in the time that it takes to open.
Yeah.
So, all right, we have no interviews tonight, so is there anything we gotta leave it open a little. Anyone have anything they want to review on the regular agenda?
No.
Okay, just to remind you all, we did have a few additions, so it's a little bit longer than the initial one that we received. And let's go through, we'll keep our updates brief if we could, but I know some people don't, so what I'm going to do is just open the floor and ask if anyone has any updates.
No.
Nope, no, Mayor. I don't think anything's.
Well,
Anyone?
I do, for a change.
Councilmember Smith.
No, I did want to, actually, Mayor Arnold, myself went out with the Chief Ellis and the other firefighters to Douglas Manor and about 15 bags of Christmas goodies. So they were glad to see us and, very appreciative. So that was fun being asked with Chief.
Yeah, and I will just add to that we had another group from the senior roundtable that took some additional bags, about a dozen other bags to different homes. And our police officers took out some as well over the weekend before Christmas. So all in all, 40 bags went out to different members of our community to wish them a happy holidays.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so actually, I will let the city manager and the city attorney have a shot at this too.
I'm just gonna give kudos to all of our public works, parks and rec staff, and thanks Renee and Sanan for their leadership and organizing of all of that. But we had multiple teams step up and help, and this was no normal snow, as you all know. And we had the ice first, and it came in waves, but they really knocked it out of the park. And you know that to be true if you've been in other communities. I'm just gonna brag.
Watson Road is still too.
Really?
Just really appreciate the work.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
It was very appreciated.
We noticed.
Thank you.
One more comment. I just want to let everybody know.
Eric's going to take off on that.
You're not imagining it.
So just that the Webster Rock administered over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, gave out over 300 plus food bags for individuals. So, and all of them had a variety of types of meat. But Thursday before Christmas, I got in 6 tons of food.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Had to start spreading the wealth. I got some of the freezer space in my church taken up, and fortunately, it was cold enough so I wanted to stay outside.
Yeah.
So, but I want to thank everybody for supporting that effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know we want to get through real quick, but this is back to Thanksgiving. One of the neighbors on Cornell house caught on fire.
Yeah.
Kudos to the firemen. They resuscitated his dog. The dog alerted Tom that the house was on fire. And so he got up and he was able to run out. By the time he got out and the police and the firemen got there, the dog had collapsed. The fireman resuscitated the dog. His name is Baxter. He's a really cool dog.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, we have just one item on our topics for today, and that is the Boards and Commissions Annual Report. I sent that out to you a while ago. Does anyone need a copy just to look at? Sorry, Jamie.
Oh, no.
So this, as you recall, last year, we for the first time had boards and commissions submit a written budget request and ask them for some of their goals and their work plan for the year. We're going to make this a little more detailed this year. So this is the document that we're going to ask you all to use to work with boards and commissions to make sure they go through a pretty rigorous work plan process. And this includes asking them to review the mission, vision, diversity statements, and the strategic plan. And so what I am asking you all to do is work with your staff liaison and your board or commission chair to actually put this as an agenda item to introduce this new form to every board and commission. We will, Katie and I will arrange to send this out to the chair so they all have it, so that it is not news to them when you want to put this on the agenda. It just will help us in the spring as we do budget work, understand what they want to do. It'll help them focus what their tasks for the next year are going to be. So please make sure that this is a priority, because we're going to need these back probably by March at the latest to really use them in the budget process. So, does anybody have any questions on this or what goes on this? I know you've had a chance to review it. I don't necessarily walk right through it.
So I'm just
You
thinking
do it.
timing. So Green Space just met yesterday for their January meeting, so we can get it on the agenda for February. But that wouldn't give them, unless they have it in advance, you know what I mean? Like they need time to work through it if they're gonna get back to us by their March meeting.
So couldn't they work on it in February and finalize it in March?
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Is that, I mean, I just
I
want to
mean,
kind of see,
I-
that's what
I-
we're looking for, right?
Yeah, I think so, unless you want to think about timing differently.
We would really appreciate it back in March. The majority of the boards and commissions have some type of subcommittee. That might be a possibility as well. to
Mhm.
work on it as a smaller group.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not working on stuff outside of supposed to be, you know,
Sure.
the whole thing, but
Sure.
We kind of basically all have a chance for 2 meetings before we need to turn it in.
Depending on when and.
some might have three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
you would have like,
Yeah.
turn it in the second week of
Yeah.
January, then it'd be good. So that's all I'm thinking.
And it may be, I mean, most boards and commissions tend to ask for relatively the same budget year to year. So it might also just be if they're thinking about something that they're gonna ask for a lot more money for, then maybe just a heads up in advance of turning this in. But this is not just a budget document anymore. This really, a lot of this is how we can better communicate with boards and commissions and understand what they're working on. You know, we've gotten some surprises this year about grants that maybe we didn't know as much about in advance as maybe we had hoped we would. Or sometimes where we had some issues that were coming up at boards and commissions that maybe weren't entirely consistent with our strategic plan or with our goals as a council. So this is just a way for them to put together what they want. And then as last year my letters were easy because council said, oh yeah, great to everything. This year we'll have another work session with the leaders of boards and commissions during the budget season. And hopefully we'll have some greater feedback to them from council about the priorities we'd like them to work on. Because remember, other than a few regulatory issues, these are advisory bodies to us. So there's that. And then I did just want to, yes, Karen.
So these are being given to the chairs, the board chair, you're just saying you want us to raise it with them when we meet with them.
I would like for you to make sure it's on the next agenda.
Mhm.
And it's, I would argue this is your job to introduce this, not the board or commission chair's job. It's your job to introduce this because this is something council is asking of the board and
Okay.
commission. That they fill this out and they do some significant work thinking about what their next fiscal year is going to look like.
Okay.
And I thought I just, I've had a couple of meetings with different boards and commission chairs. I just want to reinforce what we all agreed on. I don't know, it was a long time ago when we did our workshop, our retreat, whatever we called it, shortly after the last election, about our role as liaison. Remember that, you know, obviously you all are keeping us up to date, which is great. And this process, I think, will help with that. But I also, you know, want to make sure that we understand that as liaisons, we also have to work with staff liaisons to make sure that the board or commission is following both our legal procedures, sunshine and things like that. But also if they want to work on a new policy or they want council time, we do have forms and we have requests that they need to make of us. And it's part of our job as council members, I think, to make sure that that process is followed. So just a reminder on that. And then I would encourage also, rather than just thinking of this as one-way communication of us coming to council and saying, here's what boards or commissions are doing. Also, I would use it as an opportunity to inform the people in boards and commissions what we're working on. Because they're our most active and involved residents, and that helps us, get what we're doing out to more people at any given time. So just wanted to highlight that as well. And then also, if you're gonna miss one, I know we can all look at the recordings. To be honest, I think we've hurt their feelings if we just watch recordings. So if you are gonna miss something, please feel free to ask me or anybody else to just sit in, because I'm happy to do it if I'm available, and I know some of the rest of you are. It's good sometimes to meet some new people as well. All right, any other questions on this? We have no appointments. Look at us, we're doing so well. We're gonna start this on time. So why don't I just for, when we get to the podium out there, you have, normally I just am the one that has, here's the run of show for public hearing. You always have a document that really is a step-by-step listing of how the public hearing is going to proceed, and there are half sheets out there for the public as well, so that they can take a look at it, so people can follow the order of procedure, who's going to speak when we're going to ask questions and things like that. We just agreed, and thank you to Katie and Renee for getting those put together. We just all agreed that it might be better, the more people understood the process, the better this might go today. So I
do have a question.
Sure.
So, based on our questions, are they preloaded so that they know are we asking those questions that we had last week, or are
Yeah,
they already built into the presentation?
So I think some of them are built in the presentation, some of them are not.
Okay,
Anything that you want to ask, I would only just suggest that we stay on topic. And I know that Neil, as well as Robert and I, are going to give a little reminder, and that is that we are legally restricted in what we consider in making this decision. And the more we can stick to what that topic is, probably the better off we're going to be in the hearing. But obviously, that mostly we collected the questions just so staff would understand what might be coming, rather than expecting them to put answers in the whole presentation.
So you're not saying, like, if someone is veering off topic in the essence of what we consider, we're not stopping them from talking, they're just what we can consider is different than what the public comment is.
Public can say whatever they want. I mean, in terms of us as council
Gotcha.
members, we probably should be the ones that set the good example to stay on track of what our decision-making criteria is.
We're not trying to ensure they behave, David. We're trying to ensure you.
Well, that's what I just wanted to, I don't
Oh,
behave.
no, public is welcome to say whatever they want to say within their 3 minutes. That is absolutely true. Okay, well, look at us. We're on time, so let's make sure that we're in there and ready to go right at 7, please.
All right.
No. Thank you very much. All right, welcome to the January 7th council meeting in the city of Webster Groves. We are happy that you're all here, that you're taking such great interest in our community issues. We do welcome your thoughts and your comments. Please note that they're going to be limited to 3 minutes, and we'll make that a strict 3 minutes this time, given how many of you. I have a big stack of comment cards already, so please be sure to pay attention to those 3 minutes. And you'll do so when I call your name. Just so you know who those of you who are sitting in the room, and some of you are either in our meeting room or down. Actually, we have the fire bay set up in case we needed overflow space there as well. There are 2 periods of public comment in this meeting. The first will be as part of the public hearing. So if you're here to talk about the KVC Children's Hospital proposal, your comment should come during the portion that is the public hearing. If you're here to talk about anything else, your public comment will come on our agenda during the regular meeting time. Okay? And as I will repeat later, if you'd like to make a public comment, we're going to ask you to fill out a speaker card like this. If you are in either the Gordon Conference Room or in the Firehouse Bay, we have a deputy city manager in each of those places who can give you a comment card, and we'll make sure that you have your opportunity to speak. Those of you who are online, when we get to the point in the agenda for public comments, both in the public hearing as well as during the regular meeting, we'll ask you at that time to use the raise your hand function, and then we will call on you as well. Just so you know, typically we don't get to the online comments until after we've concluded with those people who are in the building. All right, we will start as usual with the call of the roll.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Arnold,
Here.
Councilmember Bliss.
Here.
Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Alexander, Councilmember Hickson Shepherd.
Here.
Councilmember Hasselmeyer.
Here.
All right, we'll begin with our public hearing. The title, KBC Mental Wellness Campus, 33 North Gore Avenue, an application by KBC Behavioral Healthcare Missouri Incorporated and St. Louis Children's Hospital for repeal of existing zoning of MEC Educational Campus District back to the A3 10,000 square foot resident district and 2 conditional use permits to allow a hospital use and an institution use located on 23.3 acre tract of land at 33 North Gore. Just a word of introduction to everyone in the room and those who are listening but maybe aren't in the room. So we're here to consider Bill number 92774, which amends the city zoning code and provides 2 conditional use permits for the property at 330 North Gore. The action has been requested by St. Louis Children's Hospital and KBC Behavioral Healthcare Missouri. I want to remind my colleagues and those in attendance, both online in the room and elsewhere in City Hall, that we're considering a land use issue here in this hearing, particularly zoning and conditional use permits. As Mr. Myers is going to give his presentation, he will emphasize this as well and outline this. The considerations that we use to decide this matter are defined specifically by our ordinances, by the comprehensive plan of Webster Groves, previous use of the property, and state law. So remember that this is what our charge is, to make a land use determination. So you know all the materials that will be presented here today by members of the Webster Groves staff are available online through a link on the agenda, so you can access those. The public hearing will proceed in the following manner. We're going to start first with Mr. Myers' presentation that defines the proposal for us and makes our staff recommendations. We'll have a period of time for questions from the council for Mr. Myers and maybe the city attorney, depending on the content. Children's Hospital and KBC will then be afforded the opportunity as the petitioner to make a presentation. Then we'll also have council questions at that time. Following those 2 presentations and the questions, we will have the public comments. Again, just a reminder, you're limited to 3 minutes per person, and you do need to fill out a comment card if you are here in City Hall. At that point in time, as the petitioner, KBC and Children's Hospital may give a response if they choose, and then we will finish the question and answer information part of the public hearing with more questions from council, both for KBC Children's Hospital as the petitioner, the city attorney, or Mr. Myers as Director of Planning. After that, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be entered into the record as part of the public hearing, and then that we will close the public hearing. I'm going to ask each and every one of you, including my colleagues, just to remember that we want to do the best we possibly can. We know that this is a very important decision, and it has stirred a lot of feelings in a lot of people in our community, and we want to be respectful of all those feelings. We ask you to do the same of others who are choosing to speak here tonight, no matter what side of the issue that they're on. Our job is to make the most informed decision possible, and so we're going to work really hard to do that, and we'd appreciate all of your cooperation in that process. All right, with that very long introduction, Mr. Myers, if you could begin with our staff presentation, please.
First slide. Thank you. My name is Robert Myers, and I'm presenting on behalf of the City of Webster Groves. I'm going to provide an overview of the application for you tonight, and it's broad and not as deep as the packet of materials that you have before you. But I do want to cover a lot of the basics, what I see as the basics. This is an overview of what I'm going to be presenting tonight. A summary of the application, background, land use entitlements, the City Plan Commission and public hearings, City Council considerations, and then a summary of actions for you to take. This is a very high-level, brief summary of the application, but it involves two elements. First, there's a zoning map amendment, and second, there are two proposed conditional use permits. First is an institution, and second is a hospital. You should also know that St. Louis Children's Hospital is actually the applicant in this case, and the contract purchaser is KVC Missouri. The applicants can tell you if they've closed by now. I understood a few months ago that they would be set to close on the property shortly. The location of context, and this will have bearing in just a moment, but the locational context, you'll see the campus is outlined with the yellow dash line. And the reason the context is important is because it shows the relative location within the community, the proximity to regional transportation, for instance, Brentwood Boulevard up to I-64, and then Elm Street down on the 44, Manchester Road. So it has regional proximity, also proximity to services like what I call the downtown west, but Old Webster. On the other hand, it has proximity, but it's also located the specific context within a residential setting. And I think that's important for the applicants because they're interested in this residential setting as recuperative place for the hospital location. This is a summary concept plan for what's being proposed. And this is in your packet, but essentially this is the entire campus proposal as it would be developed. Specifically, those areas that are highlighted in orange would be new elements of the campus. You'll see a hospital off of Rock Hill Road and a parking lot. And there's also two small recreational facilities. I think there's a basketball court, for instance. But the rest of the campus would essentially stay the same. I would also mention that I received a couple of communications about where fencing is proposed to be located. There's not a perimeter fence proposed around this. Instead, there is some interior fencing, and the applicants can explain that in more detail. I wanted to give you a sense of what this is like, this campus from Rock Hill Road and North Gore as well. The green areas are proposed to be undeveloped. You see parking lots and you see buildings, and I'll go into that more specifically. It's important to not only recognize what's proposed, but not proposed in this. Although the zoning ordinance defines this as one of these conditional uses as a hospital, what they're proposing are 77 beds and staff of 196. But in my experience, a lot of times the hospital will include emergency room. This is not the case here. They're not proposing surgical procedures, diagnostic clinics, parking garages, helicopter transport. So a lot of these uses that go along with a hospital, which have land use impacts for communities, those are not being proposed here. What they are proposing is this 77 bed hospital. Likewise, the institutional conditional uses includes this private school, partial hospitalization program, and intensive outpatient services for youth. Those are not overnight stays, the way I understand it. has 48 patients, up to 48 patients total, staff 25. But what they're not proposing here, like you see with schools often, there's no student parking, there's no parking garages, no sports stadiums, no outdoor public address systems. In my experience, you get concerns from neighbors, for instance, about these stadium lighting, but again, this is not proposed here. Sure. Good catch. Okay. Okay. Ready? Okay. It's not advancing. There we go. I wanted to provide some background, and this has some history, but it is relevant. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, please. What I'm proposing to show here is that we're not talking about an open field that's been considered for the first time for an educational campus like this. I'll start with, in the 1830s, St. Louis Protestant Orphan Asylum was founded. And in 1869, the Orphan Asylum relocated to this campus here specifically. At that time, there was already a Webster College that had been closed, but the rock house that you see here on the campus is probably the oldest building in the city of Webster Groves. So in some ways, you might think about this campus already being here and then the community of Webster Groves growing up around it. That's one way to think of it. It's been used for decades and decades for the same or similar uses. In 1943, the uses was reorganized as Edgewood Children's Center for Foster Care. And then 1956, Edgewood merged with the Forest Park Children's Center, which was one of the earliest residential psychiatric treatment centers for children in the United States. So since this time, since the 1940s and 1950s, in my thinking, this campus has had the same mission and the same purpose for those decades. In 2009, Edgewood Children's Center merged with Boys and Girls Town. In 2021, residential treatment program closed, but the school and foster care support and other services have continued. And then finally, in 2023, Great Circle integrated with KVC, Missouri. And so KVC, Missouri and St. Louis Children's Hospital, again, are here for you tonight. This is the campus as it stands today. Again, it's not just an open field starting from scratch. This photo was taken in early 2024, so there are a couple of buildings that are no longer here. I can cover that in just a moment. In terms of land use entitlements, it's currently zoned MEC, Major Educational Campus. The neighborhoods around it are zoned A3, 10,000 square foot residence district. And the applicants are proposing to rezone this back to the original A3, 10,000 square foot residence district for this campus and the issuance of 2 conditional use permits. In 2013, Great Circle sought and received city approval of rezoning for the MEC. So unlike some of the other institutions in the city, Great Circle actually applied for and went forward and was approved for this MEC, Major Educational Campus zoning, and was approved for a master plan for the future development. You'll notice that there's a driveway on the north part of the campus, and that was intended to be opposite of Bismarck. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But that's how it was approved in 2013, 2014. In 2016, the city zoned approved zoning to construct an administration building. And I noticed at that time, they decided instead just to have the driveway lead out instead of opposite of Bismarck, instead mid-block. In 2017, the city adopted future land use map of the city's comprehensive plan. And the future land use map recommends public, institutional, community, that's the area in blue for this particular campus, and then single family residential for the neighborhoods around it. So this is a comparison of what was approved in 2013. Its current use, if there's any corrections to the current use, the applicants can tell me or can advise you, obviously. And then the proposed. The number of buildings you'll see was approved for 9 in 2013. There's only 6 today, and that's because earlier in 2024, KBC Missouri applied to the Historic Preservation Commission to demolish for permission to demolish 3 buildings. The Historic Preservation Commission reviewed that. They found 1 building didn't meet the criteria for the 50-year rule, and the other 2 buildings did not qualify for local historic preservation landmark status, I should say. And so today there are 6 buildings instead of 9. The 1 building that they're proposing to construct is this hospital building. The number of students was approved in 240 in 2013. They're proposing in the future to have 130, or they're seeking permission for 130 maximum students. The outpatient clinic, they didn't really address that in the 2013 approvals. They noted that there were, for instance, 10 persons in this, what was called the SAFE program at that time, but they really did not cap the outpatient clinic, the number of individuals. The application today is proposing 48 maximum individuals. The residential treatment / hospital beds was approved for 72 in 2013, and now they're proposing 77. You also likewise see information about comparison about parking spaces and street entrances. In terms of the building plan, you'll notice on the bottom where it says existing demolition, those buildings have now been demolished. The Kresge, Layton, and Hitchcock. And the 1 building that's proposed is the hospital building. Other buildings would be, some of those would be repurposed, such as the Mabee building. The Mabee building, as I understand it, used to have the residential treatment that ceased in 2021, and that would be repurposed to have an outpatient clinic. So the City Plan Commission held a public hearing on all 3 applications. They had excellent public input. I thought it was really amazing. The people who, everyone who participated, it was very encouraging. They took public comment, the Planning Commission, on July 1st, August 5th, and November 4th. Those 3 meetings combined, there were 33 speakers in favor, 29 against, and 14 expressed concerns or made neutral comments. I'm going over this very briefly. I hope this doesn't diminish any of the fantastic comments that were received. But if you want to dive in the details, the packet covers that very thoroughly. So I just, in the interest of time, I won't be covering that. So these recommendations were made to the Planning Commission. The traffic study, the Public Works Director and Planning Development Director concurred with the traffic study. Security plan, the police chief and fire chief determined that it was adequate. It adequately addressed security concerns. And then concerning the zoning, the Planning Development Director recommended approval as complying with the future land use map and also with the CUP criteria, which I'll be talking about in just a moment. So the Planning Commission, following holding the public hearings, deliberating at their November 4th meeting, they recommend that the City Council approve all 3 applications, and the vote was 8 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions. So the City Council's considerations, again, there's really 2 elements. One is the zoning map amendment, and the second are the conditional use permits, 2 conditional use permits. And those are under different considerations or criteria. First, the rezoning considerations. One point of reference is obviously the future land use map, which recommends public, institutional, and community uses for this property. Another point of consideration is zoning compatibility. And in zoning compatibility, they're proposing at the underlying base zoning for this property become A3, 10,000 square foot residential district. And I believe that that aligns perfectly with the existing A3 zoning in the surrounding neighborhoods. Also, approval of this bill would not create zoning nonconformities in terms of height, setbacks, uses, etc. The conditional use permit considerations are more specific, those criteria. And you have those before you here tonight. It asks the questions, these criteria. Will the proposed conditional use substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, adversely affect the general welfare of the neighborhood, or overtax public utilities? And again, these are the criteria to be used in your considerations. First, the CUP considerations will not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestions. What's interesting here is it says substantially increase. So it's not asking, is there any increase whatsoever? If that were really the case, we would never have a school or a church or a university or anything else, or even a residential subdivision. But I would say that what I would consider an exhaustive traffic study and peer review of traffic study, to me, it clearly demonstrated that there's no substantial increase of traffic hazards or congestion. Actually, to get more specific, the revised traffic study, it found that there was no intersection at which there was any level of service that was reduced at those intersections for traffic. It did find that there was one intersection, not in Webster Groves, in Rock Hill, that it would increase traffic delays by 2 seconds for 4 cars, one in the morning and one at night. So, I mean, that's the extent of the increase in congestion. That was in the city of Rock Hill. Vehicular and pedestrian hazards are currently very low. That was looked at, and with no projected increase. Quickly, for the other CUP considerations, will not substantially increase fire hazards. In my thinking, this is not an inherently hazardous use in terms of fire hazards. And also it has ample open space, at least 30% campus open space is required for this sort of use. Will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. What's interesting also is that, unlike a lot of hospitals, this is a one-story building, which to me seems compatible with the one-story building scale, predominantly building scale in the neighborhood, the residential scale. There's no security, perimeter security fencing, no stadiums, auditoriums, public address systems, student parking, parking garages, emergency rooms, no helicopter transport. It will not adversely affect the general welfare of the community, I believe, in part because of the security plan that they have. And there's no evidence that I've seen that it will overtax public utilities. There's sufficient utilities, as far as I'm aware, that's already serving this campus or is available. For instance, if they need more electric power, I've not seen anything that more won't become available. So the summary of actions that you have tonight, there's one bill before you that includes the rezoning and the conditional use permits. And that is because the applicants preferred it that way, and they're asking for approval of all of this as one package or not. And so you would have one vote on all 3 elements. So the possible actions would be to approve the bill as amended, or deny the bill. And briefly, I want to point out two things that you may want to be aware of. First, I had the question of what would happen if this bill be approved and the conditions change and the applicants want to do something different, to modify, amend what they're doing. There is a process built out within the city's code whereby they have to come back to the Plan Commission and the City Council for any amendment to whatever might be approved here tonight. Also, I would say those conditions that are being proposed, that's the whole purpose of those conditions, is for by parameters, a framework for how they would operate should this be approved. The other consideration is if there are violations of the conditions, there's provisions in the city code in order to handle that as well. So with those safeguards in place, I think it's safe to say that this provides, again, the framework for how this could operate should this be approved. Just as a housekeeping measure, I would also note that traditionally, the city council's conditional use permits have a condition that says that the conditional use permit is issued for the specific applicant and does not run with the land. What that means is if you have a change of ownership, as I understand it, they would need to come back. They would need to come back for reapproval. But the conditions that are in the bill, the institution has it that it's issued to has a condition that's issued to the applicant, but the hospital use does not have such a condition. So you may want to consider, do you want, for the sake of consistency, do you want to have such a condition for both the hospital and institutional use? Do you want it to run with the land, or do you want it to be issued to the applicant? I guess that's how I would summarize it. But inadvertently, that condition was placed in your draft bill on the institution, but not on the not for the hospital.
Excuse me, Mr. Myers, just to be clear, our standard practice is to have a CUP run with the applicant and not the land?
That's my understanding. I've looked at a few dozen of the conditional use permits and they've been issued to the applicant. Honestly, I don't know why this city necessarily does it that way, in that it's not required by code. It also sets you up for every time there's a change of ownership, someone would have to come back and theoretically get approval again. But then you run into all kinds of mixed questions like what happens if one company merges with another company? Do they need to come back? You know, there's all these nuances. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. And does that
That's it.
conclude? Well,
Yes.
it's not it for you because I'm sure council has questions.
Okay.
Who would like to begin?
I'm happy to start. Thank you for the presentation and for the plan commission meetings that I know you worked hard on too. Could you talk a little bit about what would happen if we did not approve this? What could happen with the property? What are the, like, what's the other side of not approving it?
Well, they have certain land use entitlements from 2013. And so there was one of the slides showed what they're approved for today. To the best of my knowledge, the property could still continue to use it for that in the future as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to kind of just confirm with you, is that they would still be approved for those things that they were approved for in 2013 and would be able to continue in those uses if this measure were not approved.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have, Mayor.
Question about amending.
Yes.
About amending the uses later. Does that include expanding the existing use, such as increasing the enrollment at the school or increasing the number of beds? What happens in that case?
That would. So changes might be a geographical area. That could be amendment, or it could be a change of uses. Let's just say they wanted to have 200, I forgot the numbers, I'm sorry, but 200 students rather than 130. That would need to, because that's a proposed condition in this bill, if it's approved with that condition for a maximum of 130, then they would need to return to amend the conditional use permit to exceed that.
Okay. And Councilman Bliss, so you understand that would also then require another public hearing or require the same process that we've gone through up to
Right,
this
and
point.
that's without any additional construction.
Right.
They would have to go.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there? I was curious about the allowable square foot of coverage on the site
Mhm.
and what they are proposing to do now, and if there's any difference in that.
So the only building that I'm aware of that they want to build is the hospital. They tore down 3 buildings. There's one building that's now vacant, it's the Maybe building, and that would be converted from what had been previously the residential treatment instead to outpatient services. So the only building that I'm aware of they're proposing is that hospital building.
Okay.
Yes, so when I look at the 5 bullets that we have to consider and looking at adversely affect the general welfare of the community or overtax public utilities, I get that the institution or the educational facility is already there. We're talking about adding the hospital.
Right.
These are tax exempt entities. So how do we envision that status impacting the liability, the residential tax liability?
That I don't know. I just looked at like the land use impacts. I didn't look at any sort of tax implications.
You'll excuse me for a moment. I believe we have Mr. Donovan on the line. He was our Director of Finance, and I think he's done some research to look into this. And let's see if we can promote him to a panelist here. Maybe while we're waiting for Mr. Donovan, do you mind if I ask a question for the city attorney? We'll come back to that. And I think this is for the city attorney rather than for you, Mr. Myers, but we'll see which one of you wants to. So we talked about the 5 criteria, but we didn't talk about the qualifying phrase in front of that, which says the 5 criteria were to apply to the 5 criteria, preponderance of competent evidence. Could you just tell us a little bit about what that means in non-lawyer talk, please?
It's called the burden of proof for the standard that must be met. And so in this instance, preponderance means just slightly more than. So if you were going to use it on a percentage, you would call it 50.50% would give you a preponderance of the evidence. It's something that gives you just a little more than the other.
Okay, and this is a legal standard then that we are charged to follow and can be challenged if we're asking for 95% certainty. Is that fair?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Mr. Donovan, I'm going to ask Councilmember Alexander to repeat her question because I do believe that you might be able to shed some light on it.
Okay. So it's sort of a 2-part question. The first part is with the tax exempt status of the facility, do we foresee there being, what type of impact do we foresee there being for the residential tax liability?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. And Councilman, I'd like to understand that question a bit more. However, let me first state I did some research in the county tax rolls, and it is currently not listed within the county tax rolls. So we are currently not collecting property taxes, or real estate taxes specifically, from that particular parcel of land. So that's that would be a neutral impact, if you will. It's not going to go up or down from that respect. However, what is meant, perhaps you can shed some light on impact, the residential impact portion of that question. Are we concerned that, well, I'll have you answer that first, so let's kind of clarify, or whoever would like to.
Karen, does that answer for you the question, or do you want to follow up?
Well, I guess I'll follow up because, so it sounds like he said it's neutral because it has the same tax status that it has now.
Correct.
But when we look at the resources and we are adding to it, okay, so we're adding to the institution, the hospital. And we look at the resources that the facility will continue to use and have increased use of, the city's resources. Are we able to look and see what increasing the usage in that area does to contribute to the city's revenues? Or is there, I mean, what's I understand the benefit to the kids and the facility, and this is something that we've been doing, but what is there an increase that we can see to the revenue for the city?
Sure, that's a good question. As I look at it, there would be, of course, the impact of having to get a building permit to build the new facility. We charge $6 per $1,000 of value of the estimated cost of the project. So last I saw, it was about a $15 million estimated cost. So the building permit itself would be $90,000 to do that. That would be income to the city in this current fiscal year, if that's when it would be undertaken. There would be other permitting and other related costs to that. Other than that, I wouldn't see any additional revenue specifically to the city, unless there would be ancillary revenue of, city foot traffic, or maybe families coming to visit or something along those lines if they choose to shop or dine in Webster Groves or that sort of thing. But beyond that, there's no specific additional revenue to the city beyond the cost of being able to engage in the construction project itself, as far as I am aware.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Robert, thanks so much for being here and thanks for the wonderful presentation. I want to talk first about the major educational campus, what it's currently zoned. Can you explain the procedure for a MEC in Webster Groves to build a new building?
Briefly, so first comes the zoning major educational campus. And that comes with a preliminary development plan. And then a final development plan is reviewed by the Planning Commission and possibly by the City Council. Sorry, I can't remember that portion exactly. So that's a second step where it gets into the details and is a detailed approval. And then additionally, there's a site plan that's reviewed by city staff. But those are the components that I'm aware of.
And can you explain to me a little bit the obligation of this council to follow the city's 2017 future land use map? That's just a recommendation, correct?
That's
it's
my
been
understanding,
adopted, but
right?
it's just, we're not obligated to follow it.
Yeah, my understanding, it's the official policy guide for land use, but it doesn't bind the hands of the council in terms of making a determination.
So assuming, just playing this out, assuming council were to reject this proposal, the MEC would remain and the current owner would have the opportunity to effectively, right, correct me if I'm wrong, continue what it's doing on that property so long, and they could construct new buildings so long as it meets the MEC initial requirements, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
So just to follow up, so I'm clear about that, if you don't mind.
Mm.
Yeah.
Would that include then building a building under Oh, see, I'm the one without the mic. Would that include under the 2013 MEC building a building for residential treatment? That's part of the original, what did you call it, development plan?
Well, they were using the maybe building for residential treatment already. And they did not have a new hospital proposed as part of that 2013 plan. One thing that they did have was the new administration building, recreation building. And there were other buildings that were going to be replaced with newer, more modern buildings. But that's kind of the nutshell of their 2013 approvals.
But the 2013 approval included residential, am I, okay,
Yeah, residential treatment.
okay, thank you.
Robert, one thing that, I've noticed as I reviewed the comments and the recordings from the Plan Commission is this notion that residents brought up is that a hospital is not conducive to a residential environment. And I struggle with that because when you look at the history of hospitals, kind of how you walked us through the history of this piece of property, the history of hospitals is that they were in the middle of towns for reasons because people needed services. Now, I understand that hospitals have gone through a lot of development in what they provide and what they don't provide. But there's this term called micro hospital, which is effectively, I think, what this is. It's not a true hospital. It doesn't provide surgery, doesn't have diagnostic testing. In the Plan Commission, and I didn't see this, but I was just wondering, in the Plan Commission's review of this, did anyone raise or did anyone research other residential communities that have approved a micro hospital such as this and the impact that it had on the community?
There were several of the speakers had researched that question for other communities. And some of that is reflected in the minutes. From my own experiences, many hospitals were traditionally in downtowns and in residential neighborhoods. And then over time, as they become larger and larger, some of them migrated out towards the interstates, for instance. But originally, the idea was, again, recuperative, be placed in a quieter setting, in a more familiar residential setting. That was one idea behind hospitals originally.
The thing that I've been struggling with as I've reviewed the materials is that it seems like people are saying, well, it's not fit for this community. And the exact same things that this hospital, the applicant is attempting to do is what's been going on this property for over 150 years, it seems like to me. It's just in the 21st century and not in the 18th, 19th, or 20th century. And that's what I'm struggling with is like, where did this notion that a hospital such as this is not conducive to a residential environment come from? And I don't know, I'd love to know that answer because to me, it makes absolutely no sense because it seems like effectively this would have been deemed a hospital in the 1840s when it was initially approved. But it's just, we termed it differently and hospitals have evolved. So that's the only thing that I'm struggling with when I think about how this is going to impact the community. It just doesn't seem to me that this is going to impact the community in a negative way.
Well, the zoning ordinance has a specific definition for hospital, and that's why it was classified this way. But that definition encompasses a pretty broad range of medical services, everything from acute care, for instance, that traditional hospital with the ambulances coming, going in the emergency room with their lights and their sirens, on down to a much different facility like this in my thinking. This is different in my thinking.
And I think you just nailed what I think I was trying to say was effectively the English language doesn't have necessarily a term of art for us for what this is. And we deemed it a hospital just in order for simplicity purposes. But to me, I look at this and this doesn't seem like a hospital to me per se, like the hospital that I think of.
Robert, I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
Thank you for this presentation. after reviewing the Plan Commission meetings and reading correspondence from concerned neighbors and being an advocate for safe streets, I do know that the traffic report doesn't significantly impact vehicles. My concern is with the walkers,
Right.
pedestrians, from the kiddos walking to school to folks walking their dogs or cycling. And so I just want to understand a little more clearly how those tax-paying residents are taken into consideration.
Right. First, the traffic plan did not initially consider these elements, but it was a revised traffic study did. So they looked at traffic crashes and they looked at pedestrian and bicycle safety. And they actually went out and did counts for pedestrian and bicyclists in the area in order to get a baseline. And they also thought of the idea of not just the baseline, I think, but the projection for bicyclists, pedestrians. I would say that a lot of the details for pedestrian safety will probably come in the site plan stage. When you look at things like where sidewalks are going to be located, sidewalk widths, the intersections, the improvements that are in place for both bicyclists, pedestrians at those intersections, and for the entrances of this campus.
Mayor, may I, in response to Mr. Franklin's question, one thing I will point out that goes to your question about whether or not this is appropriate in this area is that it initially, as Mr. Myers indicated, had been an A3 zoned area, 10,000 square foot lots. As a part of our ordinances, it will list a whole list of permitted uses on the land with conditional use permits. And one of them that was considered and is built into our ordinance for an A3 district is a hospital. So it fits in with conditional use permits, which is what the request is. So again, it fits in and was contemplated at the time that the zoning plan, that the comprehensive plan that is currently in effect was contemplated, as well as the 2017 drawing.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any additional questions for Mr. Myers? Thank you very much. We appreciate your work on this. All right, we will now let the applicant have their moment of presentation. Mr. Stocker, you're going to do that presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Perfect. Thank you. Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council, Dr. Peoples, Mr. Bruntreuger. For the record, my name's George Stock. I'm with Stock and Associates Consulting Engineers, and my address is 257 Chesterfield Business Parkway. I'm here this evening on behalf of the St. Louis Children's Hospital, BJC, and KVC of Missouri. Joining me this evening are Ms. Trish Lolo, President of St. Louis Children's Hospital, Ms. Lindsay Stevenson, President of KVC. They will be available to answer questions, as I will, once we conclude the presentation. In addition, we have several members of our design team, and particularly our traffic consultants. This evening, Ms. Julie Nolfo with Lockmuller Group, filling in for Chris Beard, and Mr. Lee Cannon with CBB. KVC acquired Great Circle and the property in 2023. They have a tax exempt status, which was mentioned a few moments ago. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC of Missouri are partnering to create an updated mental wellness campus that will provide kids and families facing mental health crisis the care they need in world-class facilities with highly trained staff providing a full range of services to meet the needs of kids today. So our request tonight, much of it has been, this will be somewhat repetitive. I think as I go through my presentation, you're going to hear things that Robert went over, which is very good. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on some of the preponderance of proof or evidence as to the substantially, how we will not substantially adverse those 5 factors. But our request tonight is to repeal Ordinance 881,
That was adopted in 2013. It created the MEC, Major Educational Zoning District, and revert back to the historic and surrounding properties A3 zoning district. As was mentioned a moment ago, the A3 zoning district does allow hospitals and institutions as conditional use permits. Much was discussed about hospital, and I'll go into that in a moment. But this hospital in this case is not an acute care hospital. And part of the traffic that was demonstrated in July and August referred more to a hospital. And part of what I'm going to go through tonight in the traffic and the evolution is that this hospital is different. It's a facility to provide better care for kids. So part of the rezoning and that preponderance is the need for a mental wellness campus. The demand for behavioral health services continues to outpace the capacity in the St. Louis region. Suicide is the second leading cause of deaths for 10 to 14-year-olds in Missouri. Many of our children are facing unprecedented anxiety and depression. The need for pediatric and adolescent care significantly outweighs available care delivery locations. St. Louis Children's Hospital consistently experiences high census in their 14-bed pediatric behavioral unit, with patients frequently boarded in the emergency department for extended periods of time. St. Louis Children's Hospital behavioral health beds cannot adequately meet community needs and fulfill the mission of improving health within the St. Louis region, and behavioral health expansion opportunities on the St. Louis Children's Hospital campus are extremely limited. So while studying for pediatric behavioral health platform optimization expansion, BJC determined a joint venture with a party experienced in behavioral health would produce the best outcome for both St. Louis Children's Hospital and the community. Following a comprehensive national search, BJC distributed a request for proposals to multiple behavioral health organizations, seeking a party which to form a joint venture in the St. Louis region. Upon completion of a comprehensive vetting process, St. Louis Children's Hospital chose KVC Health System as the selected party due to their experience and proven track record. So a little bit about the joint venture. I think this comes into play in the conditional use permits, and it runs with the owner, not the land. A lot of discussion about that. So a joint venture has been formed between St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC to own and operate a pediatric mental well campus. St. Louis Children's Hospital is the majority. St. Louis Children's Hospital is the majority owner. The joint venture will honor St. Louis Children's Hospital's financial assistance policy. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC will jointly build and own a new pediatric behavioral health hospital and will renovate an existing building to support outpatient services. Each party will contribute funds to the JV. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC will jointly govern the JV, making decisions through majority vote. KVC will manage the day-to-day operations in alignment with agreed upon St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC quality, operational, and security metrics. St. Louis Children's Hospital, partnered with Washington University psychiatric team, will provide medical coverage. Both organizations are committed to long-term success of the joint venture and the services to be provided to children and their families. There is no set expiration or termination of the agreement between St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC. If the ownership structure were to change, an amended conditional use permit application process would be required to be filed and processed through the city of Webster Groves, just consistent with the questions, Mayor, that you had asked Mr. Myers. So the proposal. This project is intended to update decades of residential care that has been provided for children. The proposal has already received unanimous approval from the state of Missouri due to significant need for pediatric behavioral health service in the St. Louis region. That was issued by a certificate of need by the state of Missouri. So this campus will evolve into the following facilities: a 77-bed, one-story mental health facility for inpatient residential care with full continuum of outpatient mental health services. That one-story building is represented on the right. So that would be the west elevation, front door facing North Rock Hill. 65 inpatient beds for shorter stays. Those stays would be between 5 and 7 days. Inpatient beds are for kids who need close medical attention. 12 residential beds for longer stays, 2 months plus. Residential beds are for kids experiencing emotional and mental health challenges where kids benefit from extended clinical treatment. In addition, outpatient care for patients needing ongoing treatment. The distinction between hospital, acute hospital and this, there is no emergency room service, there's no helipad. This is an important component differentiating this hospital from an acute care hospital. Children will most often arrive by prearranged private transport, ambulance arrivals. If required, will be prearranged and directed to arrive without lights or sirens. The majority of the children arriving at the hospital will enter through the building sally port. So the sally port is just to the left. It's the northwest corner of the building. And when we go to a site plan, I'll show that. It's an overhead door, pull into the sally port, and that's where the patients are transported into the hospital facility. The current K-12 school, community buildings, community-based services, cell tower, which was approved and built in 1992, will continue as they are today. This includes the oldest building on the campus, the Rock House. So changes from the current campus, and Robert, mentioned this. So there's replacement building. So he mentioned 3 buildings being demolished. 2 of those are underneath the footprint where this replacement hospital. So those were antiquated structures, formerly educational facilities, and replaces them with a single-story building. Inpatient facility with state-of-the-art features built to exacting regulatory and clinical safety standards. Again, you're looking at that west elevation. Services, this reduces the number of residential care beds, creates inpatient services, also adds continuum of outpatient mental health services. So the change from the master plan, so a lot was talked about the master plan and the entitlement, and Robert had a slide that showed what's allowed versus what we're asking. So it's about an 18% reduction in the number of children that would be on the campus from that 2013 MEC to what we're proposing today. So site selection, again, Robert did a nice job on this, but there's a couple of things that I would just want to point to. And again, our request to rezone. So back in July 1st, when the original staff report was prepared with regards to that public hearing, staff's opinion at that time was the proposed request to revert property back to the A3 zoning district prior to 2013 major educational district is in compliance with the existing comprehensive plan, 2017. The residential zoning plan has been in place since the 1920s. Councilman Franklin, your question about the comprehensive plan is certainly a guide. It's a guide for it's a guide for us. It's a guide for a request. And again, our burden is to try to demonstrate that we are in compliance with those goals and objectives outlined by the city. As I just mentioned, the city's comprehensive plan, it identifies this property as public institutional community, which allows for the hospital and the institutional use. So the city's planning commission, as you know, on 11/4, after much testimony, both for and against, a lot of professional reports, traffic and security were submitted. They ruled or recommended to this city council in favor of the rezoning to conditional use permits unanimously. The mental wellness campus builds upon 150 years. So there's a chart there, about 150 years of providing care for children on the 23 acres. Within Webster Groves, as we evolve to provide the care kids need today and into the next 100 years. That's why we're standing here. As you see on the graph, the campus was established in 1869. Periodic changes occurred over the years. In particular, from 75 to 2012, there were 8 conditional use permits. So this request of conditional use permits tonight in 2025 is not inconsistent with what took place from 1975 up through 2012. There were 8 of them. The ordinance of the MEC adopted 881. We believe today it's time to further evolve and meet the mental wellness for our communities today. This location will provide a continuum of care in one location that is centrally located, is peaceful and ideal healing environment for children. So a little bit about why this particular site, we'll go into it in a little bit greater detail, but providing care in the residential neighborhood allows for patients to experience a quieter, more therapeutic environment that supports healing, allows for community connection to typical day-to-day life, offers accessibility to families who visit or who need to return for outpatient follow-up care. Those same families can use resources, restaurants within the city of Webster Groves, any of the facilities that are afforded them. This environment does not exist at the St. Louis Children's Hospital 14-bed facility at Kings Highway. Much more of an urban setting, much more of an institutional amongst tall buildings. Kids receiving treatment thrive when they can look outside and see trees, people, pets, other signs of normal life. The 23.3 campus currently has 60% open space. So I think the minimum requirement was 30%. So we're twice that, 60%. And the building footprint, all the building footprints comprise 14.7%. We contend that the mental wellness campus will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. The changes in zoning from MEC to A3 is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and decades of the same zoning and the same use, providing wellness for children. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC will maintain the residential green space, park-like feel, which is essential to serving kids. So a little bit about the site. Robert had one up there earlier. Again, the properties that are to the east, to the south, and to the west, with those within the city of Webster Groves, are zoned A3, so we're not inconsistent. What's shown in blue is the one-story hospital. It's not designed to have any vertical expansions. It's a maximum height of 35 feet in height. It basically is on top of where those two buildings had been recently demolished. The buildings in white are the buildings that will remain, including the Rock House. The campus maintains a perimeter park-like feel. As you can see, all the buildings and the parking are generally centrally located with large green space buffers and well landscaped around the perimeter. Access to North Rock Hill Road will be reduced to one access driveway. When this petition was first filed in the summer of 2024, it had an access drive at the far north end aligned with Bismarck. The result of that drive was causing a degradation in traffic. There was comments raised both from the public and from outside traffic engineers. We stepped back, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but updated the traffic study, relocated the drive into a location where there was no adverse impact, and reduced the drives down to one. Those areas that have been disturbed along Rock Hill will be re-landscaped. The gaps will be filled in. The Sally Port, which I mentioned a moment ago, is basically in the northwest corner. It's identified in yellow bar as to where you enter the building. There's been a lot of discussion about the fencing. So Robert had mentioned there is no perimeter fencing. That is true. There's two sets of fences. One is a 12-foot non-scalable. It's the purple line. And what it does is it encloses the hospital outdoor space, open space for the children to go. It's non-scalable. It's 12 foot tall. It's not visible from the perimeter. It's to protect the children. As you can see the rendering in the lower left, you can see it's very well buffered. The other fence is orange, and it's 6 foot in height, and it interconnects the buildings and closes the play area for the school children. So there's two outdoor areas, both fenced. That 6 foot is a scalable fence. The 12 foot is a non-scalable fence. Lighting. Been some questions with regards to lighting. So any new lighting is going to be LED technology with cutoff light fixtures. There will not be an impact and an adverse impact or change in the lighting levels at the perimeter of the property. In addition, the exterior lighting will be reduced to 50% at 10 p.m. each night on the campus itself. So security, obviously a topic of concern. There's a history, prior to KVC acquiring this from Great Circle. So following the 8/5/2024 public hearing, St. Louis Children's Hospital, KVC, provided a written detailed security and safety plan. It was submitted to the city through a confidentiality statute so that the city police, fire chiefs could review, comment, ask questions, ultimately to gain concurrence. Following their initial review, a meeting between both chiefs, Acevez and Ellis, city attorney, Trish Lolo, Lindsay Stevenson, myself, other members of the BJC KVC security team met. We listened to the questions, took the input from both police and fire chiefs, and incorporated that into the security plan. The security plan was resubmitted, and there were several takeaways from that meeting. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC take ownership for the safety of the entire mental wellness campus, including the hospital outpatient care setting, parking lots, landscape spaces. Council Member Alexander, you're talking about burden proof, a little on the public safety and so forth. And so we contend that we're not overburdening the facilities, and we ended up with their concurrence. But part of this is a partnership with Webster Groves Police Fire. It's a top priority, and these are the things that we'll do. And it's written in an agreement, a joint agreement signed by all parties. Provide police and fire departments with training manual, and welcome both departments to attend training programs, certification classes, annual safety drills. Promote bi-directional communication in partnership with quarterly meetings with the police and the fire departments. Ensure 911 is not called to assist with medically stable transfers. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC have multiple transport teams. Ensure EMS and transferring hospitals will refrain from using lights or sirens for patient arrival. There are measures will be in place to support the safety of patients, staff, and the surrounding community, including access control, facility and outdoor security features, staffing and staff training, patient transportation. Examples of safety measures include dedicated 24/7 safety and security officers, both inside the building and outside the building in the parking lots. Patient observation technology to activate alarms of patients near doorways on patient care units. Secure exterior doorways requiring badge swipe and personalized 4-digit PIN. Secure admitting within an enclosed space with a garage door. Police and fire chiefs concur that this project will not substantially increase the fire hazard, substantially negatively affect the general welfare of the community, and or overtax the utilities. As I mentioned, we have a concurrence letter, which I believe is in your packet, signed by both Trish, Lindsay, and both fire and police chief. Traffic. So traffic is one of those items that was talked about heavily in the first two public hearings, both in July and August. So similar to the security information following the 8/5/24 public hearing, we took the questions and comments regarding traffic and pedestrian safety and assembled our team to address. Several items took place. First, Lockmuller Group, Julie, was engaged, and Chris Beard, because of their experience with BJC, St. Louis Children's Hospitals, and facilities relative to this, similar on the trip generation understanding. The original trip generation, again, originally used was acute hospital. So a meeting was held in September at the City Hall with the new city planner, Robert, and Public Works Director to reaffirm and reestablish the TIS scope of services, just to make sure that questions that were being asked of staff, any questions that had been raised by the public, that we were going to address those in an updated traffic study. So Lockmuller Group and CBB, Mr. Lee Cannon, who's also here in attendance this evening, worked collaboratively on an updated traffic study. Safety review of both pedestrian walking and or cycling, as well as vehicle crash history was taken into account. The result, the traffic impact evaluation determined that St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC Mental Wellness Campus Project would not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion. An updated traffic study was submitted to the city in response to those questions from the Planning Commission and the public. St. Louis Children's Hospital, through the use of Lockmuller Group, reaffirmed and confirmed that the traffic study methodology that was utilized was accurate and was concurred by CBB and Lockmuller in collaboration. So the traffic generation, again, I go back to that, was refined based on anticipated operating program of this facility, number of staff, patients, et cetera. Previous study had used the acute care hospital data, which overstated the traffic impacts for this children's mental facility. A standard acute care hospital includes activities which were mentioned by Roberts, such things as surgery, ER, imaging, labs. None of that's part of this particular hospital. I mentioned a moment ago on the site plan, as Robert did, the drive that was aligned with Bismarck has been eliminated, and we've taken the existing drive and shifted 150 feet north. We're filling those gaps in with landscaping. So the results confirmed by both traffic engineers show that no Webster Grove's intersections degrade in service. As Robert mentioned, one just to the north in the city of Rock Hill has a very, very modest impact for 2 cars, one in the morning and one in the afternoon of a delay of 2 seconds. Relative to City of Webster Groves, the proposal would marginally affect traffic on Rock Hill Road by no more than 4%, which is within the typical variation on any roadway on any given day. Existing travel levels of service will be maintained within the City of Webster Groves. Rock Hill Road and Gore Avenue were found to be safer than similar roadways within the City of Webster Groves. There is no expected impact to roadway safety or pedestrians and bicycles. There were supplemental reports, which I'm assuming are in your report, in your packets, that Lockmuller had put together relative to the pedestrian accessibility, safety, and crash analysis. A second meeting was then held at city staff, CBB, Lockmuller, and myself. We revised our collective team findings, made our formal submission addressing all city comments, staff comments, and comments that we had heard at the public hearing. City staff concurred with the applicant's submittal, which demonstrate the property conditional use permits would not substantially increase traffic and congestion. So lastly, Lockmuller Group studied some additional intersections that were not asked of staff. They were down at Kirkham, and they were the North Rock Hill and the North Gore intersection. Trish and I had met with a resident that was concerned with those two intersections, as well as the potential or bus cut-throughs that were happening on Dornell Drive. They went out and did visual inspections for a week, and they reported back that there were no congestion issues. Any congestion issue was related to a train passing, and then they did not witness buses cutting through Dornell. So these additional services were completed by Lockmuller and concluded no congestion and or unsafe conditions exist at either intersection will result from the project. So a poll, and many of you may be aware of this, that St. Louis Children's Hospital, KVC, had engaged a national polling firm to contact residents, and they contacted over 300 residents with regards to a proposed pediatric mental health facility on the Edgewood Great Circle KVC campus. The results from that poll were 2/3 support the project based solely on what they believe they had already heard. The support jumped to almost 80% when given 5 facts about the project. And those facts were hospital, not what you think. It's a 1-story, no ambulance or sirens. Traffic study says no impact. The kids are regular kids. Specialized tools prevent old problems. And St. Louis Children's Hospital is the majority owner. Response rate exceeded statistical targets by almost 50%. Very robust results. So some of the comments that were made, so there's 2 sets. There's comments from the respondents who support, and their comments are to the left. Things such as, I'm really tired of the not in my neighborhood attitude. I've lived in Webster for over 40 years. There's already a facility in Webster. It's important for the children. There's nothing to be afraid of. These programs have to be somewhere. It has a larger campus. Problems are all in the past. As long as we've lived here for 45 years, it has always helped children who have mental health issues, is proven. And there's respondents that oppose, and these are some of the comments. Why not put it in the boonies? It doesn't have to be in my backyard. More rural settings would be better. They must turn it into a park. It is because of the history of the facility before KVC. I don't want any mental health facilities where I live. So again, we got strong support, sharing some of the comments that were made.
Imagine if we had the opportunity to poll the children that were actually going to receive care here and their friends, what that would show. If that's showing 80% of Webster residents who aren't the ones that are actually going to be receiving the care support this, imagine the kids that are actually going to receive the care.
That's right. That's right. So in closing, we believe that the information submitted by our team through the course of the petition process demonstrates the following. We believe that the rezoning from MEC A3 is appropriate for all the reasons that we've stated, the consistency with the comprehensive plan, which references public institutional community, the same zoning that's been in place since the 1920s, other than the period from 2013 to today, the unanimous recommendation from the City Planning Commission 11/4/24, and what's been talked in front of the City Council by Robert, those burdens of proof, the preponderance of evidence that burden is put on us, which are the will not substantially increase traffic hazards, will not substantially increase fire hazards, will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, will not adversely affect the general welfare of the community, and will not overtax. I think through our presentation and those details and those reports and those studies that have been done by the professionals, and I think one thing that I wanted to mention on the security plan, I talked a lot about the meetings that we had in hand, but when we started that security plan, it was a security plan that was already in place that KVC and Mercy Kids utilize in Olathe, Kansas. So that was the basis of the study, and it's been perfected and it's been addressed specifically to that input that we've gotten from the city of Webster Grove. So I think it's important that we mention that. And so we appreciate your consideration. And as I started this presentation, Trish, Lindsay, and myself are here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from council? Emerson, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you. One question is on slide number 6, the site plan. I want to make sure I'm understanding that plan okay. It appears once a patient gets into the facility, is pretty much interior protected, either a 6-foot fence or a 12-foot fence.
So the hospital, the only so there's 2 internal courtyards within the blue, if you look. And then on the east side, there's an actual outdoor courtyard for the kids. That's closed off with the purple line, which is the 12-foot fence. So the patients within the blue building, they're limited to those areas. The interior courtyards are the one with the fence. The larger green area, which is encompassed by the orange fence, are associated with the playground, the basketball court, which are the school children.
2 separate.
2 separate. That's correct.
Thank you.
Can I ask sort of related? I think you referred to it as Sallyport arrival.
Right.
Would
So
you just explain, I mean, obviously the door opens. Can you just walk us through how that works,
So,
please?
so it's basically, you know, it's a prearranged drop off of a patient. So the vehicle comes, the transport vehicle comes, the garage door opens, the vehicle pulls in, the garage door closes down. The driver, whether it's family members or whether it's an ambulance that's arriving, the patient is inside the building. The vehicle's inside the building, and so it's in the secured premise when the patient is brought to the hospital facility. So the Sallyport is garage door. It's just an enclosed space. And then occasionally, and that's really, as I mentioned, it's prearranged. The majority is prearranged, as well as ambulances are prearranged. The intent is the majority comes through the Sallyport.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I think a lot of my questions were addressed in it. I appreciate the comments about light pollution and trying to keep that down. I know a lot of concern have been from the, neighbors around as lights and the loss of the tree buffer with, recent construction and the road going in. So it's nice to see on the plans that that's being replaced and that they'll have kind of a nice, I think it's going to be maybe like a raised berm around Rock Hill also. There'll be like
Well,
a visual,
We're not.
hidden, of course, but like a buffer.
Yeah, there'll definitely be where there's gaps along Rock Hill. For example, there was some construction that had started based on that 2013 plan. That area will be restored. And then where the existing driveway is, it gets shifted 150 feet north. That area will be infilled with landscaping.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for mentioning that the Rock House is not part of this plan and continues to be preserved, and the admission process with the Sallyport and also and then also the security plan. It's great to hear that it's had a couple of iterations since it started in Olathe, and so it's not a brand new plan for a brand new facility. It's had some testing of time. That's a comfort to hear also. So I appreciate that. And I just know that BJC and Children's and WashU, I'm, full disclosure, I work for WashU. We're incredibly risk averse institutions. So I know that there's a long history of getting to this point for Children's to choose a partner for that RFP process to happen. And I just think that that just adds a layer to the kind of complexity of this and the expertise in this, but just some flavor that those very risk averse institutions.
Yeah, I think you have the good fortune of having this asset within your community and having St. Louis Children's Hospital partner with KVC. I've had the good fortune to represent St. Louis Children's Hospital and other facilities, not behavioral health, but other facilities. And there's always a little bit of the fear of the unknown. But once the facility is built and it's up in operation, what I most often find is just testimony of what a great neighbor they become. They're responsive, they listen, and they do care, and they're risk adverse, and they want to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So they've been very thorough as KVC in getting the right professionals involved in order to address those questions or those fears. I call them of the unknown. And I think part of this particular project is there's a history. There was Edgewood, there was Great Circle, but KVC is new. They've only owned it, as I mentioned, from April 2023, and they have a very good partner in St. Louis Children's Hospital and BJC.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for this presentation. You've answered tons of questions for me as far as security goes. And I agree, like the fear is real for the folks who live in that community. And so I just want to underscore too. So the conditional use permit as a hospital, that, and pardon me for being like so elementary, but that increases the level of security in the facility. I see the fences, the Sally port. It's nice to know that like there's a garage a garage door that's going to go down. Are there any other points that, neighbors should be aware of? Now that it's a hospital?
I think that term hospital, it's providing treatment for kids. When you hear hospital, you think sirens, you think helicopters, you think noise, you think intrusions into your neighborhood. That's not what's happening here. It's basically a very high-tech, one-story building providing a level of care that isn't afforded today, simply because the facilities are outdated. I mean, we mentioned 3 buildings being knocked down. They're obsolete. I mean, they've been there a long time. I think it's important for preservation in the Rock House. We're preserving the Rock House. But this campus has been here for a long time and technology has come a long ways. That's a betterment for the community, having that technology and having that new building. And I think that's what we've been trying to demonstrate since July is that, while hospital is a term, when you look at other hospitals, they're multi-stories, they're bigger, and they have many other components going on that this one doesn't and would not be allowed because our conditional use permit is about what we're asking for. It's not about putting in a helipad, a surgery center, or imaging or anything else. Medical treated kids, they're going to be treated at St. Louis Children's Hospital, where that medical treatment.
Thanks. I do want to follow up too, on the safety for pedestrians. And I understand this is probably like a question I should have asked Robert, but when it gets to the site plan, and there are considerations being taken for safety of, walkers, do we get to have a say in that, or where does that go? And my apologies, I'm the new kid on the block.
That's part of the site plan that Robert was making reference to. So
Okay.
once this is approved, then all of these buildings go through a process where everything is evaluated in terms of what's being built, what's new. All of these things are looked at in terms of the architectural styles. All of those things become part of a next process.
Okay.
But you have to have the approval to do it first before you move into those next levels. And yes, there is a say in that.
Okay, thank you very much. And can I ask one more?
Mhm.
Of
course. Thank you,
While my mic's hot.
Or
Thanks.
it could-
Water retention. Is that also a site plan situation? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll ask those questions then.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
I do have questions about the length of stay for the patients and the type of intensity of the care. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
That might be a question that I'll ask Trish or Lindsay to respond to. Okay. I'll just get to that particular one where we had it right here. There it is.
Yeah, the length of Lindsay Stevenson, the length of stay for kids that are in our inpatient facility are typically around 5 to 7 days. And then the youth that will be in the residential beds will be in there a little bit longer. So the initial 5 to 7 days is just a period of stabilization for kids who have, depression, anxiety.
So the next step would be to go home.
Correct. Yeah, the goal is to get them back into their home community.
Okay.
Other questions? This question, I know it's going to feel like beating a dead horse, but I want to be absolutely clear, in part because, one of the things that residents in the neighborhood worry a lot about is expansion from this footprint and from this plan. And you mentioned in your presentation, and obviously Robert mentioned it as his, but I just want to be clear that everyone understands any change in the ownership structure, any change in the number of patients served, any change in wanting to add more buildings and different kinds of services is subject to a new agreement with the city of Webster Groves. And you all agree with that?
We fully acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And agree.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to propose, since we've been here 90 minutes, that we take a 5-minute break. And then we will begin at that point when we come back with public comments. That also gives me a chance to get organized a little bit for public comments. But we will reconvene at 8:31, according to my phone. Yes, 8:31, no later. The public hearing here on Bill number 9274. We are to the point in time in our meeting for public comments. Again, if you would like to make a public comment, please fill out a card. They're over there by the door. And you will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. Please note that as part of our public hearing process, when you make a public comment, council will not respond. That's just the way it works. So we're here to listen to, we want to hear your ideas, but please don't ask questions with an expectation that this is a place for us to answer them. So we do not have any, and actually people have asked how many cards I have. There are about 50 cards in my hand right now. I have had one person withdraw, another person who has decided to go home and will use their raise the hand function. I will call a name for a speaker, and then whoever's on deck, we'll use our baseball terminology in St. Louis as well. And you, just because you turned in a card, let me say this first. We welcome hearing from all of you. But just because you turned in a card doesn't mean you have to come up and speak. If you feel like someone's covered that fine for you and you'd like to forego, please feel free to do that too. However you want to do it, we're here to listen to whoever wants to engage. Given how many we have, we'll probably go another 90 minutes and then take another brief break as well. People often ask, is there any order to these cards? There is no order to these cards, in part because I took them as they were handed to me, but also Councilmember Bliss and I counted them and shuffled them by mistake in doing so. So there is literally no order to this. So if you thought you were first and you're not now, I really apologize. All right, we will start with, is there anything that I've forgotten? No? Okay, then let's start with Dr. Cynthia Rogers and John Pantanella. You will be on deck, so to speak. And if you're on deck, feel free to come on up and hang out over there by our police officer.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Cynthia Rogers. I want to tell you first that I feel like I just won the lottery. So thank you for whatever magic just happened to pull that card first. I am the Division Director and Vice Chair of Child Psychiatry at Washington University. And in that role, I will be responsible for all of the physicians, advanced practice practitioners that provide care at the facility. I want to first say that Webster Groves has a very special place in my heart. I was a resident here for almost a decade. And so I really understand the community feel of Webster. It's one of the reasons why I think this is such an important place for this facility. The location will really allow the children that we serve to be in a locale that we know is important for mental well-being. We've had some discussion of these children as if they were menaces to society, and that has been really disappointing to hear. These are all of our children. All of our children have the risk for mental health disorders. These are people that you know, kids that you know, and we've served several hundred patients from Webster Groves in our facility. So this is something that's important for the community. I just want to state how grateful we feel for the opportunity to provide the entire continuum of care in one location, in a place where these children can really benefit, where the families can benefit. And maybe they'll stop off at McDonald's and Starbucks and other places too, so that it will also be a benefit to the city. So we look forward to showing the community how risk averse WashU truly is. Let me tell you, they are in many ways, unfortunately. The safety of these children and of the community is one of the things that we really consider to be paramount and is important in the design and how we conduct the clinical services that we provide. So I just want to, again, thanks for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the physicians that will be working in this facility, taking care of the families. So thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. She has also demonstrated that you are welcome to use your 3 minutes, but you also don't have to use your entire 3 minutes. So we have John Pantanella with Ashlyn Sappington will be next after that. Mr. Pantanella.
I am John Pantanella. I live in Webster. I'm speaking to you as a father of a son that has mental struggles still today. It's been a rocky road over the last probably 15 years. Some 30 years ago, I started a business. It's been very successful. I have unlimited contacts and capital at my disposal. And when my son had problems, there was nowhere to go in Missouri. We had to go out of state. We went to Utah. We went to Florida. The kids do get better. I did hear some comments earlier about not in my backyard. It's already in your backyard. Look around. And if you don't treat the kids when they're young, what happens later? You're just kicking a small problem down the road. And in business, we say the small problems, you kick them down the road, they just become bigger ones later on. So I hope you can all find the courage to do something, make a decision, a bold decision here. I don't think we need one of these. I think we need 20 of them in St. Louis. Thanks.
Thank you. Is Ashland Sappington here? All right. Dr. John Galgani? Right, and then on deck will be Meg Lane.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I've been a Webster resident for 33 years. I've been a pediatrician in private practice for 35 years. I've had an interest in mental health for a very long time, and I want to echo what has been said by all the other folks already, that desperate need. These children need help, and this town is the right place, and I hope we do the right thing.
Thank you. Right, Meg Lane is next with Dr. Jamie Hook after that.
Great. Good evening. My name is Meg Lane. I am a resident of Webster Groves, a mother of 2 daughters who attend Bristol Elementary, and also a member of the Board of Trustees of St. Louis Children's Hospital. Children's Hospital's mission is doing what's right for kids. And I get to witness firsthand how the team lives that mission. And we are very fortunate to have this facility in our region. It's a world-renowned pediatric hospital. And what we need right now, what kids need, is access to more mental health services. And our region has not kept pace with the increased demand for these services. And it's one of the top priorities of Children's Hospital to help with this problem. And so, as you heard in the presentation, they did an extensive search and chose KVC. KVC, while not, I think, a household name here in St. Louis, does have 3 inpatient hospitals in Kansas, and recently opened another facility with Casey Mercy Children's, which is a top pediatric hospital in Kansas City. And I think it's important, in addition to choosing to partner with KVC, they did choose this site specifically because it is in our beautiful community in Webster Groves, and that it has a lot to offer children that are receiving treatment. You know, I've heard that about concerns about traffic and safety. I live 4 blocks from this campus, so I get it. I drive past it every day, 2 times a day on my way to work. And I think that throughout the process, Children's has really genuinely been listening to the comments from the community in these hearings that we've come to, and people that have provided comments. And I think importantly, so we'll continue to listen to that feedback, and isn't just doing it to get through this process and then isn't going to be a good neighbor. You know, this project's important to them, and their reputation is incredibly important to them in our community. So I think that they'll be a really great neighbor for all of us. You know, I think that there's been a lot of negative, you know, commentary about the former operators of this campus, and that's not who's there anymore. And I think, you know, with Children's coming in, they bring very high standards and accountability that they expect from all of their facilities, and that will include this one. So I think them being a part of this project improves the facility from that standard as well. So, you know, I think as a community, we need to do what's right for kids too. And so we need to help support this project and the partnership with Children's and KVC. As we've talked about, if this doesn't get approved, this facility is going to continue to exist and support kids. But I think this proposal really offers an opportunity for it to be better and to serve more people in our community, and we really need it. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Hook, and then Ben Rayleigh would be next.
Hey, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I speak in support of this proposal. I am a child psychiatrist currently employed by WashU. I spend time both at Children's Hospital and some community psychiatric clinics and in clinics at WashU. And when I think about this proposal and what I would highlight tonight, I think of two aspects that I would emphasize. The first is the opportunity to locate this embedded in the community. As someone who has provided community-based outpatient psychiatry for more than 15 years in various locations in North County and South County, Kirkwood, and downtown, I cannot emphasize enough how meaningful it is for families to be able to access care that is convenient to them and in a non-intimidating place, unlike going downtown to the academic center and trying to navigate through there. It's very important to people to be able to be close to where they live and to feel there is some convenience in that. I've always been impressed with the way that Children's Hospital embeds specialty care clinics and after hours urgent care centers throughout the community and throughout the region, and the way that the Siteman Cancer Center has expanded their blueprint across the region to be of convenience to people seeking medical treatment. So I'm really excited about the possibility that we can begin to do a better job of that for mental health services. And then the second thing that really stands out to me is that this is the first opportunity locally to be able to give the children that live here what they deserve, which is access to a full array of treatment options, which does not exist locally at this time. We will be able at this center to provide them brief hospitalization for stabilization, longer-term residential stays, and every level of therapy that they might need, whether that's monthly, weekly, or daily outpatient therapy, so that they can get that care close to their home, remain in their home as much as possible, and get better. And right now, there's no place in town that offers a full array of services. And I just think that I'm really proud of the work that we do at WashU. I'm proud of the work that we do at Children's Hospital, and I would be honored to be able to work at this new facility. And I think it's such an exciting opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. So we have Ben Rayleigh. If I'm doing that properly, you're going to correct me in a second, but Kelly Johnson will be our next up.
Ben Rail, KBC Missouri employee, Gray Circle employee for the last 10 years. Good evening, and thank you for your time. As the training and compliance specialist for KBC Missouri here in St. Louis, I want to address safety at our facility and how it has changed under KBC. One of the first things that impressed me since becoming KBC was the installation of badge readers on the inside of all school doors, requiring staff badges to exit. This was regularly brought up with previous leadership to no avail and with no reason given. Under KBC, this was an immediate consideration with badge readers fully activated in December 2023, just 6 months after the change in leadership. These doors are now locked from the inside, provide delayed egress, alerting staff of any attempted unauthorized exit. In the 13 months since, we've seen a significant improvement, a reduction of client elopement from the school building to 0. Additionally, I've had the opportunity to see plans for our hospital, as well as see one of our Canberra hospitals in person. The safety and security measures in place are impressive. I've also witnessed swift action taken to address potential risks, both within KBC Missouri and Canberra hospitals. When situations arise in KBC, there's a distinct difference in how they're handled compared to past leadership. Under KBC, situations are addressed proactively with a focus on prevention and safety rather than being silenced or swept under the rug. This commitment to transparency and improvement sets KBC apart. Another implementation of KVC was a designated safety officer in every building, as well as the creation of a safety committee in each region, helping to enforce our proactive approach to safety. Furthermore, not only do we have additional trainings under KVC, but all trainings are done with a focus on client and staff safety while being more job specific as well, complete with competency checklists. KVC places a strong emphasis on employee engagement and satisfaction. KVC is consistently ranked in the top 1% of employers nationally for employee well-being. When employees are well supported, they are in a far better state of mind to take care of the children and families being served. The concerns about a hospital on campus are understood. However, KVC is not just a change in name. It is a change in leadership, safety culture, trainings, and employee engagement. I have full confidence in KVC and BJC that this will be a trusted and responsible presence in the community. In closing, I'd like to ask the council members to vote in favor of this hospital. Everyone agrees we have a mental health crisis. With a vote in favor of this hospital, you have an incredible opportunity to be a part of the solution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson, and then Jessica Richards would be next.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I am Dr. Kelly Johnson. I'm the medical director for BJC Behavioral Health. We have 3 clinics here in St. Louis. We primarily do outpatient care. We have a fantastic relationship with WashU and Children's and work really well with them. We see both adults and kids in our clinics, but I also employ child psychiatrists. I want to say something just about the need for psychiatry in our community and really in Missouri. When I came here 8 years ago, I was struck by, unfortunately, some of the level of service gets provided in medical surgical hospitals and not psychiatric hospitals. And the reason why is because there's not enough beds available in our state or our communities. And what that means is that a lot of kids and youth and adolescents end up coming into emergency rooms or in their crisis and staying there sometimes for days or weeks, unfortunately. You have a big choice, obviously, to make here about your community and what you want here. I would ask you to think about this in terms of choices. I don't think any child, youth, or adolescent would choose to have incapacitating anxiety, depression, trauma. I don't think anybody would ever make that choice to have a mental illness, to wake up today and say, gee, I think I'm going to have, depression or anxiety today. And because of that, that's really propelled my career and made me very dedicated to psychiatry throughout my life. So I think it's fantastic that we're trying to increase capacity here in St. Louis to improve the beds and availability for kids who need mental health treatment, and I hope it happens here in Webster Groves. I really appreciate your time tonight, and thank you.
Thank you. Right. Jessica Richards, and then we have Paula Murphy. It would be up next.
All right, I'm Jessica Richards. I'm a nurse practitioner at St. Louis Children's Hospital in the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit. So I have the pleasure and challenge of caring for our region's most vulnerable children and their families every day I go to work. I'm also a Webster Groves resident, parent of 2 children at Avery Elementary. Both of those children utilize various mental health services through our community. The amount of self-harm that I'm seeing day to day at work is only increasing. I've taken care of children as young as age 9 that have intentionally tried to hurt themselves. I've taken care of multiple children who are on their multiple attempt of trying to harm themselves, with parents crying, saying, please don't send them home again, because I don't know what to do with her if we were to go home. Our community doesn't have options, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that St. Louis Children's Hospital has done in trying to expand options for available families in our community. When my husband showed me a house listing 5 minutes away from my in-laws, wanting me to move to Webster Groves in a house that needed way too much work on its 100-year-old bones, I thought he was crazy. I'm glad I was wrong, because the best thing about this community is there are so many ride or die, got your back people in this community that have really shown me what being part of Webster Groves is like. And I feel like we have the opportunity to show that level of support to so many families across the region and have such a great opportunity to sue so many needed services for so many families in our area. And I am really excited about the opportunity for good that this project has to offer for those children and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Paula Murphy and then Ann Abad would be next.
Hi, I'm Paula Murphy. I'm the mom of a now 25-year-old who's struggled with mental and behavioral health issues her entire life due to abandonment, ADHD, trauma, as well as for me, as well, I'm a recently retired children's hospital nurse. I was there for 34 years. For the last 20 years of my career, my role was that of the physician liaison for the St. Louis metropolitan area representing children's. As a mom, it's extremely difficult to navigate the world of mental health resources for kids. I'm an educated, medically savvy person, and the hardest thing to do is find care for your child who's hurting and probably hurting themselves. It's difficult for several reasons. There's not enough providers. We've heard about that. There's not enough long-term outpatient settings. There's not enough inpatient beds when things really go south. This ignores the insurance issues, which we cannot address at this point. To have a resource with all the components to care for a family in one location could be life-changing and probably life-saving. To have a top-tier children's facility to provide the outpatient clinics, counseling, et cetera, as well as the ability to have 60 inpatient beds for kids who are really struggling would be such a great addition to the area, as you've heard. Currently, Children's has 14 inpatient behavioral health beds. Someone else already said kids come to the ER in crisis and usually have to be housed in the ER for days or weeks before a bed is located in the region. You know, maybe that's in Cape Girardeau or somewhere in Illinois. Talk about adding insult to injury. In my professional role at Children's as a liaison, I was in all the pediatric offices across the St. Louis Metro over the last 20 years. One of the biggest challenges for the primary care pediatricians is providing appropriate mental health care for their patients. One pediatrician told me that a third of her patient appointments are related to mental health. The appointment may be tagged as a stomach ache, but once the doc starts talking to the patient, it becomes clear it's anxiety. Or the appointment's labeled as a headache, and it boils down to depression. The pediatricians are a front line of care for our kids, and they need a quality resource in the community that actually has capacity to help them, help us care for our kids' mental health. I hope this rezoning goes through without incident. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ann Abad is next, and Jessica Richards, you'll be following.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Abad. My husband, Mark, and I have lived in Webster Groves for 30 years, and we've raised our 2 boys here as well. I'm currently the president of Missouri Baptist Medical Center in Town and Country, and formerly the president of Barnes Jewish West County Hospital in Creve Coeur. Both are part of BJC Health System, as is St. Louis Children's. No one thinks of either of these hospitals as being in neighborhoods because they both face busy main roads. I can assure you, however, that both hospitals have subdivisions immediately adjacent to the hospital that Mr. Stock is well aware of. Claycrest and Country Air subdivisions in Town and Country are immediately south of the hospital, and the Questover subdivision in Creve Coeur is immediately to the east of Barnes Jewish West County. As in where the hospital campus ends, the subdivision starts. I mention this to say that BJC has significant experience in being a good neighbor, even with, in the case of MOBAP and West County, the 24/7 ambulance traffic, hundreds of daily outpatient visits, constant flow of family and friends. We work very hard at being respectful to the neighbors around us. Please note, of course, that the proposed hospital would not have a fraction of this traffic flow. And all of that said, I can assure the council that BJC is sensitive and responsive to the needs of the communities around it. I'm a resident and excited about this project. It's a good fit for Webster Groves. With permission, within my 3 minutes, I'd like to read a quick statement from a colleague of mine that could not be here. My name is Lee Fetter. My wife Barb and I have lived in Webster Groves for 41 years, where we raised our family of 5 sons. I was the president of St. Louis Children's Hospital for 10 years. Children's Hospital has served the St. Louis community for 167 years. They are excellent at taking care of children and adolescents. So good that they've been recognized as one of the top 20 children's hospital in the country for many years. I fully understand and support the community's concern about safety on the proposed campus and the impact on surrounding neighborhoods. But the addition of Children's Hospital as a partner to the current owner, KBC, means that there will be a stronger security presence than there was today. How do I know that? I know how much effort we've invested in the secure environment at Children's Hospital on Kings Highway. It was ingrained in our mission and our daily operating model, not just for patients, but for the families of our patients as well. And I know I'm biased, but I think Webster Groves should be thrilled with this opportunity to add this nationally renowned organization to its community. Signed, Lee Fetter. Thank you very much.
Is Jessica Richards here? Oh. Put your card in the wrong pile. I apologize. Clark Hoteling. And then I think it's Jake Bremer who would be next.
Thank you. I'm speaking tonight as a 24-year neighbor of the KBC property, a member of the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition, and as a member of Churches Together for Justice. The North Webster Neighborhood Coalition, Churches Together for Justice, and I are very much in support of this proposed joint project between St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC, Missouri. It makes me proud that this incredibly necessary project will take place in my community, in my neighborhood. I'm saddened by the anti-project signs that I drive by as I go down Rock Hill Road. What is a neighborhood? What is a community? And what the heck does keep the character actually mean? To me, neighborhoods and communities are places that welcome all people, whether they are Black or white or male or female or trans or homeowners or renters, live in a single family home, a duplex, a condo or apartment, or at any income level or wealth status, or as in this case, are children suffering from mental illness. Our character is defined by how we welcome and support those among us. Children have been served on this land long before Webster Groves was a city, long before any zoning laws, long before the residents who opposed this project chose to live here. The children showed the real character. They welcomed us to their neighborhood. This project will enhance and positively affect the character and general welfare of our neighborhood and community without being a burden, as has been demonstrated in the proposals earlier. Let's show our true character and courage by welcoming the children that need us and their families and those supporting that provide much needed health care for them. Inspired by all of you that have spoken tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jake Bremer? Jake, all right. And then Teresa Murphy would be next.
Good evening, guys. I'm not even sure what to say. I think this is silly that we're all here. I don't see why someone would be opposed of this at all. I am just shaking my head because of the comments I've heard at this meeting. When somebody said the word regular person, a couple of people had laughed. Coming from a graduate of Great Circle, KVC, I don't think there's a definition for a regular person. We're all the same kind of people. We all go through stuff. I am in full support of this place, doing anything they want to that property. I run on that track daily. I have never had a problem. Safety, I've never been hit, never had anything happen. Webster police officers patrol that neighborhood pretty well. Traffic on the school, it's just like other schools. You got Webster's high school, there's traffic, same stuff. I mean, I just don't see traffic going. I mean, I went to school there, I worked there, I volunteer there, I've supported that place, and I will keep on doing that. And hospital, I don't even know if hospital is the correct term for this building that they are going to be putting in. To me, it actually sounds like a really cool place. It doesn't sound like a jail. I totally understand the 12-foot wall and I understand the 6-foot wall for safety. Yeah, I mean, I just don't really know what to say. I'm just shaking my head at this meeting that we're even here tonight. Mental health is a huge thing. Uh, to say that a kid doesn't struggle and I don't really know what to say. I'm just like appalled at this whole meeting and people opposing tonight and what we want to do to KVC. I'm in full support of it. Yeah, and just the fact, I just want to say one more thing. I have my own business. I graduated, I'm alive, and I'm here today. Most people that didn't think I was a regular person thought I wouldn't be here right now. Have a life, have a business, any of that stuff. But I just want to prove you guys wrong. I heard this meeting was happening, and I definitely wanted to be here to support of KVC and Great Circle doing this. So once again, I'm in full support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Teresa Murphy, and then we have Alec Hill.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Teresa Murphy. I'm a Webster here in Webster. And I have a few questions for actually everyone. Please raise your hand, myself included, if you support mental health care. Looks like everyone's hand is up. Maybe most everyone's hand is up. So next, let's see how many people here actually live in Webster. Raise your hand. Okay, for people at home, I would say it's probably 80%. Is that?
Would you
that's
please make
ac-
sure you speak into the microphone?
Do you
'cause
think
we've
that's
got
accurate,
quite-
80% so that people raise their hand? I think that's true. Which means I think we should have a voice for our Webster residents. And with that said, thank you, Webster residents that came here tonight in spite of this weather, and also who all support mental health. Everyone here does. If you live in Webster, your voice should be heard. I propose KVC repeal of the existing MEC zoning should be decided by all Webster residents through a vote of a ballot. This voting opportunity will give our residents more time for research on what KVC is asking of our existing roadways, school zones, traffic concerns, Webster Groves, emergency services, and more. Again, if you live in Webster, you should get a voice. A guest of KVC, BJC here tonight should not. But thank you to our guests from KVC and BJC supporting mental health care here tonight. We know you support your company and care about your job. Our pushback comes with your idea of a hospital in a residential area. Our children's safety is our responsibility and concern too. And I just want to also mention that there are 2 board members that I believe are on the KVC or BJC. And my question is that an area you feel like you can be fair and partial to a vote either way?
Not sure. Yeah, so again, this is not a place for us to answer questions. Do you
Oh, I thought
all
it
get?
was.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm done. Thank you.
No. I didn't hear it. No, we're not going to start
Okay.
down this road.
Well, I've just been called out, I feel. She looked at me. I'd like to know what I'm being called out for.
Mr. Hill? And then Jennifer Dunn, you are up next.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Alec Hill. My wife and I have lived in Webster Groves since 1980, which is 44 years. The common ground between those who may be opposed to KVC and those who are in favor of the proposal is the agreement that there is a great need for children's mental health services. And in Webster, we have the opportunity to meet part of that need in a convenient that's location to families both here in our community and neighboring communities. And council members, I'm in favor of this proposal. And I would ask you to let's work together and find a way to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Dunn, and then Pastor Megan McLaughlin would be next.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Dunn and I live in Webster Groves. I have been a Webster resident for 25 years. I am the parent of 2 children who have and are still attending the Webster Groves School District, and I work as a primary care pediatrician. I am thrilled about the plan for a state-of-the-art children's behavioral health treatment facility in our community. As child and adolescent mental health has been thrust into the spotlight in recent years, it has become increasingly clear in my practice that my patients' psychological well-being cannot be separated from their physical health. Because of this, my colleagues and I continue on-the-job learning to care for patients with anxiety, depression, and risk of self-harm on a daily basis, as we also continue to care for routine and serious illnesses and injuries, ensure our patients are up to date on their vaccines, and educate families about safety. We can only do this with the support of community partners and facilities, which are currently woefully inadequate to meet the needs of our kids. I care for patients and families in crisis, and I am faced with few options for referral or appropriate care. These kids are our friends, our neighbors, our classmates, and our families. They are not dangerous or threatening, and you cannot tell who they are by looking at them. They deserve the care and facilities for inpatient and outpatient treatment that each of us would expect for our own children if they were experiencing a crisis. I know the campus at Gore and Rock Hill has experienced problems under former owners and management, but I also know St. Louis Children's Hospital. They will ensure this facility is world-class, safe, and a good neighbor. We face so many challenges in our local, state, and national communities right now that seem to have no direct or actionable solutions. The opportunity for Webster Groves to host a newly renovated and secure St. Louis Children's Hospital and KBC Missouri campus, staffed by Washington University School of Medicine experts, provides a timely, tangible solution to one of these urgent challenges. This facility will be transformed and will provide essential support for area pediatricians by allowing us to refer patients for excellent care that will set an example and serve as a standard for our larger community. I have experienced Webster Groves as a city that builds relationships and takes pride in its reputation in the greater St. Louis community. This project will distinguish our city as a leader in banishing the stigma of mental health treatment and caring for all of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pastor McLaughlin, and then Sharon Anderson, you will be next after that.
Mayor and Council, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Reverend Megan McLaughlin, and I have been serving at Christ Lutheran Church in Webster Groves for almost 5 years now. I came to tell you a story. In my congregation, there are 20 youth from the ages of 13 to 17 who are active in the life of our congregation and the community. Most of them live in Webster Groves and attend Webster Groves schools, and all of them live within 10 to 15 minutes of here. G is an amazing young person who is 14 years old now. They love going to plays and concerts, even with their mom, if you can believe that of a 14-year-old. They are bright and inquisitive, have loved exploring questions of faith, and spend hours listening to and creating music of their own. They have struggled with mental health challenges since they were young, and in the last 2 years have been hospitalized twice and are now struggling with addiction as well. In October, they spent a week in the hospital in Columbia, Missouri, 2 hours away, because there were no beds available for them closer to home. G is a child of this community, and seeing their struggle has broken my heart, and they are not alone. 2 other youth in my congregation have required crisis intervention for mental health in the last 2 years, and there are others who may not be in crisis but need our support so they don't get to that point. We're a community that I believe wants to love and support our children and youth in whatever ways they can. As a pastor, I invite all of you to know G's story and realize that G and all youth, regardless of the challenges they're facing, deserve to be seen and treated with love and respect, and not labeled as dangerous criminals or others out of fear. The story of Angie Burke, the beloved daughter, sister, and mother and nurse who died in a tragic accident on the KVC property in March, has also broken my heart. I wholeheartedly believe in the necessity of KVC and Children's Hospital proposal, and I am so encouraged by their close cooperation with Webster Groves first responders and their commitment to follow the protocols and guidelines that go along with being designated a hospital. Along with the approval of the rezoning and the redevelopment plan, intentional accountability to these commitments is essential. The partnership between KVC and Children's Hospital will provide support and hope for so many youth who desperately need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we'll have Sharon Anderson, Gary Silverman would be next. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a 35-year resident of Webster Groves. I'm a registered nurse and a mother whose child struggled with mental health issues. I'm going to ask everyone in this room to please pause for a moment and think about someone you love who has struggled with their mental health. This could be your child, your friend, your spouse, or maybe even you. Think about that person and how you would do anything for them. For me, that person is my son. My son struggled with mental health issues from the time he was in grade school until the day he chose to take his own life at age 28. Even as a nurse who works for the largest healthcare provider, I was unable to gain him access to the help that he needed when he needed it. When your child is in crisis, you're helpless and you're terrified. You need someone to help you who you can trust. You need quality care. The simple fact is that there isn't enough mental health care or enough of the right care available for parents today, including myself and my son. I cannot begin to tell you what I would have given to have a place in a community such as Webster Groves, my community, to help our family. That is why I implore you to please approve this new facility so that parents have access to care that can help their children, our children. Having a child who is struggling is overwhelming. Not knowing how to help them is terrifying. Not being able to get them the care they need is devastating. And losing them is a pain that no parent should experience. And I know this firsthand. I am not here because I do not want. I am here because I do not want another parent to experience what my family has. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice Wolf will follow Mr. Silverman.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dr. Silverman. I'm the pediatrician in chief at St. Louis Children's Hospital and chairman of pediatrics at WashU. I was going to yield my time, but I just want to say one thing to the group up here. This is an opportunity. I'm not from St. Louis. I came back here because I love the city and I love the people here, but I'm not from here. This is an opportunity to get a world-class behavioral health facility in your own backyard. And I would urge you to not pass up this opportunity. It will be a big asset to your community. It will not be a detriment. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Stapleton. Stapleton is next after Janice. Is that correct? Wolf, please go ahead.
Sorry, that was a little overwhelming. I'm also a mom. And if your family has never felt the effects of a mental health disorder, just wait, because you will. This is my youngest son. This is about the age he had his first psychiatric hospitalization. And he's had several. And the effects can be devastating. But they're not hopeless. They don't have to be hopeless. The treatment does not have to be worse than the condition. Over the years, he's had many inpatient hospitalization, and they have been traumatic for him. They've been traumatic for me and my husband. In fact, sometimes we couldn't even make the call for help. And one of my greatest shames is that we couldn't make the call once, and we made our youngest daughter make the call. because the emotional toll that it takes to do that to your child, it takes Herculean strength sometimes, because you know what's going to happen when you get to the hospital. To have to leave your child in a psychiatric inpatient facility is overwhelming. My son has bipolar disorder, but he also has an intellectual and developmental disability. And he's nonverbal, so I can't find out what's going on with him. But he has all the classic signs of bipolar. He gets psychotic, he gets manic, he gets very, very, very aggressive, and sometimes it's not safe to have him at home. Even so, we've taken him to the hospital. We've taken him to pretty much every hospital in St. Louis. They've told us, you were misinformed. We don't take kids. We've been told he's stable now, you can take him home because he's been sedated. We've told us, well, he's not verbal, so he can't participate in therapy, so we're not going to admit him. Twice we've taken him to Children's Hospital in the emergency department before they had a behavioral health unit. And I have to say that on those two occasions, those were the only that was the only place that has ever said, I'm not going to tell you why this won't work. We're going to make this work. We were validated and we were made to feel welcome. And he spent weeks on a surgical floor because there was no place to go, not only in Missouri, nowhere in the country. Inpatient crisis care for an individual with a dual diagnosis does not exist. He gets great services, case management. BJC Behavioral Health provided case management services, and they were at every IEP meeting. I just want to say real quick.
Yeah, please,
This
we
is
have
gonna
so many
be
people.
life-changing. This is where the evidence-based practices are going to happen. They are going to happen here at this facility, and lives are going to be changed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Willis, Dr. Dan Willis will be next up. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, I'm Sue Steepleton. I was employed by what was then Edgewood Children's Center from 1974 to 1983 as assistant to the director, and from 1989 to 2002 as president and CEO. So I have an almost 30-year intimate familiarity with and history with the program, plus observation in the last 20 years. Children and youth have resided overnight there continuously from the mid-19th century until just a few years ago, as has been noted. During my tenure, Edgewood was a level 4 residential treatment program, treating youngsters with the most severe emotional and behavioral problems in the region. It was accredited by both the National Council on Accreditation and voluntarily by the Joint Commission, which is the certifying body which is required for hospital operations such as St. Louis Children's. A special facility, as has been noted, was built during that time, the request of referral agencies that was locked in order to treat and protect youth with the most severe problems, including depression, suicidal thinking, self-harm, behavioral acting out, and running away. Near hospital level protocols were in place for treatment, behavior management, supervision of medication, and other issues. Edgewood was often cited nationally as a model for this kind of treatment. These were kids with virtually the same profile as those who will be served in the new facility. The difference is that there will be even a stricter regime of care and professionalism. While Edgewood's predecessor organizations actually predated the existence of Webster, again, has been noted, it's a credit to this community that has always been hospitable and welcoming to the evolving program there, from the early orphanage days through the care of dependent and neglected children, to the addition of special education and day treatment, to the gradual shift to intensive residential treatment, and to the incorporation of youth on the autism spectrum. I believe that during my tenure, supports were in place to consider the neighborhood. I further believe that KBC has demonstrated an ability and intention to do an even better job The addition of Children's Hospital as their partner adds layers to the ability and intention. The need for serious inpatient mental health services for young people has been demonstrated multiple times tonight and is beyond debate. I hope that the community rises once again to the challenge and views the existence and expansion of the programming at 330 North Gore with support and pride. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Anderson, you'll be on deck, and Dr. Willis.
Hi, thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dan Willis. I'm a physician at Washington University and at St. Louis Children's Hospital. I am not a psychiatrist, and this facility will only indirectly impact my day-to-day work. But as a pediatric oncologist, I am a pediatrician. And the last 11 years as a physician have opened my eyes to the mental health crisis within pediatrics across the country, and St. Louis is no exception to this. Over the years, I've cared for multiple patients in psychiatric crisis. It's not like the movies. These children have families that love them and are trying to get the very best care for them. They are scared and searching for hope. The COVID pandemic only accelerated and highlighted this crisis and how mental illness affects all communities. And whether we have a freestanding mental health hospital or not, these children and family exist. There is an urgent need for these services. The patients I cared for, I did not meet in a mental health hospital. I met them in the ER, where many stayed for hours, days, or even weeks until they had a safe place to go. I also met them in the hospital units, where rooms had to be dismantled to create a safe environment, removing anything where they could harm themselves. In the hospital, there are overhead pages and emergency alerts. The hospital can be an incredible place for physical healing, but an environment is not optimal for mental healing. I would love to not need a facility like this, but that is not the reality. The need will persist, and we as a society and a community are charged with doing something to address it. The question has previously come up if this facility should be built somewhere else, and one should be built elsewhere. One should be built in St. Charles and North County and in South County, and one should also be built here, and it would still not address that need. And I don't think that takes away from what makes this city amazing. I think it's actually what makes it a desirable city. I came to WashU to lead among leaders. I moved to Webster Groves to live in a community, and examples abound of Webster families taking care of our people. This is an opportunity to care for our people and our community. I'll end by saying that I have two children of my own, a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old, who are both here in Webster schools. They have both required emergent pediatric subspecialty care. Neither have needed emergent psychiatric care, and I hope that they never will. I cannot begin to fathom what some people in this room have gone through with their families. But I do know that if my family needed this, I would want a place designed for this care, and I would want to keep them close to home and in a welcoming community. That is the opportunity that we have here today to provide that for our families. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my understanding that I have 2 cards for Sharon Anderson, so we will move on to Mike Lauer. And then Greg Bratcher would be next.
Good evening. My name is Mike Lauer, and I am the BJC Vice President of Emergency Preparedness and Public Safety. And I came here tonight to talk about the security plan, which George pretty much covered, so I don't need to discuss that. But as the representative of public safety for BJC, I wanted to come in front of the council just to make a commitment that we are good stewards of the community. We will continue to be good stewards for our patients in the community, and we will continue to work with the police department, EMS, and fire should any instances occur where we need to become partners again. So this will be a long-term partnership, and I just wanted to make sure that that I express that here today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Lexi O'Brien, you'll follow Mr. Brasher.
Hi there, I'm Greg with BJC, but I'm a almost 20-year resident of the city over on Selma by the high school. The core argument against this project is that it's something somehow different in the neighborhood, something different in people's backyards. When it's discussed, the usual examples are brought out: the Mills Project here across the street, the Douglas Hill Project, the Artists Guild. No matter what your take is on the NIMBY philosophy, it is true that in those cases, there was something different being proposed in people's backyards. This is not that. This is simply not that. There's nothing new in anyone's backyard because this campus predates everyone's backyard. It predates anyone having purchased their home. It predates anyone's ancestors having built their home. It predates the zoning ordinances we're talking about tonight because it predates the platting of Webster Groves. And just as importantly, over the entirety of that time, its core function has stayed the same. Kids in need of care staying overnight to get that care. Staying overnight to get that care. So this isn't some new use. It is not some new function. It is a new building, or maybe more specifically, a new building type. A building type that is better. It's better for the kids. It's a better environment for them to find center. It's a better building for the neighborhood because it's much more secure. Now, you know, some of the discussion about this has been couched in the rhetorical crutch of, I support the kids, but, or I support mental health, but. Well, the but speaks loudly. It speaks loudly against a generation of working hard to get rid of the stigma of asking for mental health care or seeking mental health care. It says, I hear that you're a great institution. I recognize you're a fine institution, but I still don't want you here. I don't want you here. I think the kids are bad. This is wrong. It is fundamentally wrong. And let me just say that this is a good project. It continues the tradition of this campus, and it continues taking care of kids in need of care, staying overnight to get that care. I ask that you follow the guidance of your plan commission and their 3 meetings on this topic and support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Susie Benendum will be on deck. Lexi O'Brien.
Hi, I'm Lexi O'Brien. I'm a 33-year resident of North Webster. I live about 3 blocks away from Edgewood. Most of the time I've lived there, they've had children in residence. My kids walked to Bristol Elementary and to Steger, now Givens. We take walks on Gore, on Rock Hill. Edgewood was my polling location. And I love my neighborhood. As chair of the Police Community Engagement Board here in Webster Groves, I know the importance of planning for public safety. And I trust that our city staff takes that responsibility very seriously as it balances the interests of the public good and of property owners. In my opinion, in Webster Groves, as neighbors, we all have a role in keeping each other healthy and safe. It's how I believe we foster community. I know from experience that outpatient mental health treatment takes time. It takes time to schedule and find a provider, and it can take weeks to months to cautiously evaluate what's going to work. For a child who's in crisis, waiting isn't an option. Ultimately, it's those kids whose needs resonate most strongly with me. And for that reason, I support the Children's KVC proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet Noble will be up next. Susie Benendum.
Benedum, yes, thanks, Susie Benedum. I am a parent of a child who has had 2 stays at Children's Hospital in the emergency room for behavioral health. She is also a current patient with BJC Behavioral Health, so I know this very well. Her most recent hospitalization, we were in the ER for over 48 hours at Children's Hospital before she was able to find a bed in Center Point Hospital, which is in Columbia. The same time that she was there, there were kids who were sent to Chicago. They were sent to Cape Girardeau, and these were all kids from St. Louis. When she was sent to Cape Girardeau, I could no longer see her. When she was at Children's in the ER, I was able to go visit her and spend time in there. And even though it is highly secure, I could be a part of her care and be a part of what was going on to help her. When she went to Columbia, I was left out. I had one phone call with a doctor and then had to drive 3 hours to go get her 5 hours or 5 days later or 7 days later, however long it was that she was there. This hospital is so needed. She is a Webster Groves child. My children have all grown up in Webster Groves. And yet, when she needed care most, she had to go all the way to Columbia. It's unacceptable. She's not dangerous. She's not a child that needs anything more than just a lot of support for her anxiety and depression. And this hospital is where we need it to be, which is in Webster Groves in her backyard. And I've talked about it with her about, I know that she will be hospitalized again, just like other parents here have said. It's a long process. I know there will be a time where she will need to be in again. And I want her to be in Webster Groves so I can be a part of it, so that I can be there for her as parents want to be. I really hope that you understand how much St. Louis needs this and how much Webster Groves needs this. There are so many kids in our community that need this hospital. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert Wagner will follow Janet Noble.
Good evening, everybody. I don't feel like Webster Groves, St. Louis Children's, KVC, has done their due diligence in educating the intimate surrounding community on how we are supposed to deal with these children, patients that do escape from the facility. We have not received any guidance, instruction, direction on this. Only thing St. Louis Children's KVC has said is this won't happen with their facility. Earlier, when I went to a meeting in May, they said, we have changed the door on the facility and this will not happen. Let's acknowledge that any type of security facility, children are going to get out. So the public, the surrounding intimate community needs to be educated on what we are supposed to do to protect ourselves, protect our property, and keep these children safe. Will they have a wristband if they escape? Will they remove it? How do we know that this is just not a regular pedestrian on the street or if it is a patient of the facility? What if they are trying to break into our car or house and have some property owner gets a gun? What then? Missouri is a stand your ground state and has been since 2017. I know that this statement is very far out there, but stranger things have happened and stranger things are happening as the years go by. We have legal rights to protect our property and ourselves. I know your answer will probably be to call the police, but I experienced a child running across the street, grabbing the neighbor's screen door, and then jumping on the car and jumping on the roof of the car within 5 minutes. And there was not any staff person around. It would take 5 minutes for the police to get there also. I know that it's not a question and answer session, but I would like some direction on this from the City Council and St. Louis Children KVC. I really do not feel like safety has been addressed. Webster Groves certainly doesn't want us to shoot or harm these patients, so that is why I think due diligence has not been done. This is almost a greater risk than living next to a prison, as we would be prepared to defend ourselves. There has to be some protocol for this, and I hope this is addressed. The other concern that I have, staffing at these facilities, sometimes it's a great turnover. And I look back at what Great Circle told us, and they must have had major staffing concerns. Is that the end of my time?
That
Okay.
is.
Thank you.
You may submit the remainder to us in writing if you want to.
Okay, thank you.
Julie Cohen is on deck. Robert Wagner. Okay, I will set that in the Zoom pile. Thank you for that information. So that means Christine Byers is on deck.
So I'm Rob Wagnon. I want people that are currently opposed to become advocates if they can after the arguments made here tonight. We're friends and neighbors, and I care about everyone's opinion. I hope everyone feels heard. I moved to Webster Groves because it provides a strong, balanced community, which started with Backyard Pony, but more seriously has mixed-use businesses, education at every level, multiple income levels, art and theater, public service institutions such as KVC. We wouldn't be Webster Groves without the things that are here in Webster Groves now. This is not a difference to what we have. Even multi-generational residents moved here knowing there's a home for troubled children at this facility. Because KVC is a multi-state organization, it's easy to know their patterns of usage. They have a strong track record and have other facilities like the proposed plan, but nothing bigger. Expansion on this facility is outside their capability. I hope the information provided convinces people that this is a good part of the community and will bring healing and not harm. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Jennifer Dunn has already spoken. I don't know why I have two cards. Okay. Trudy Douglas will be on deck. Christine Byers, please.
Hello, Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. So my name is Christine Byers. My son is 10 years old. He is autistic, nonverbal, and he's been a student at KVC Academy for about a year now. A little bit about my history. I am a former St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter and reporter for Channel 5. And so when I was told that my son was going to be coming to KVC Academy, I'll be upfront and honest, I almost fell off my chair because I was there at the Post-Dispatch when we did the investigations about Great Circle. I'm here to tell you today that if it was anything like that anymore, my son would not be there. I guarantee you that. Another thing about it is that with my past in journalism, I know how to recognize a good story. And I'm going to tell you about the opportunity you have here tonight. Someday, a Dateline or a Netflix documentary company is going to come to this community because they're going to want to film and talk about an extremely, extraordinarily successful approach to children's mental health. And you have the opportunity to write that story tonight. And I just want to say that also when I'm driving past these signs that are opposing this project, it's like a slap in the face, every single one of those signs. But thank God there are so many stickers in this audience which are like a hug. And it'll be a shame, it'll be shameful for this documentary and this story someday to include comments like I've heard tonight that living next to this hospital is going to be worse than living next to a prison. I hope you never, ever need services like this because you have no idea how important this is for families in need. Thank you so much for your informed decision because anything else, any of this opposition about traffic and safety is from a place of ignorance. That's it.
Right. Thank you. Leslie Hayward. No, Hayyard. Is next. Trudy Douglas, please go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Trudy Douglas. I am a long-term resident of Webster Groves. I've lived here for 37 years, and along with my husband, have raised my kids here. I take a lot of pride in our community, and I know that we are a community that cares for each other. We take care of our families and especially our kids. I'm here tonight in support of the proposal from KVC and St. Louis Children's. We've been doing and providing services on campuses like KVC for more years than what I've lived here and our neighbors have lived here. So, like others that you have heard from tonight, I've been very disappointed in our community for some of the comments that I've heard in opposition of this proposal, and particularly those around preserving the character of our community. I've been shocked to hear the characterization of children with mental health issues as being criminal or undesirable. I can't imagine being a parent and being in a situation, as you've heard of tonight, where my child desperately needs help and I can't find it. I can't turn to anyone to find it. So let's talk about the character of our community. I want to preserve that character. I want us to do the right thing. I want us to take care of our families and our kids. I want us to preserve that character by moving forward with this opportunity. It is such a great opportunity to provide enhanced services that we don't have now, but on an existing campus that has been providing, as you all have heard and has been presented tonight, for many, many years. So I ask you, as you make your decision, and you have asked fabulous questions tonight. I am so impressed with how serious and how you have been validating facts. And I ask you to continue to validate those facts. I ask you to review the proposal, check off the list of how it meets all of our community's requirements. And I want you to consider those needs of our families, our kids, those enhanced services that this proposal and the use of KVC's campus allows us to do in partnership with St. Louis Children's. And I ask you to make the decision that allows us to preserve the character of our community and take care of our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I think it's Leslie Hinyard,
It
and
is
I
Leslie
totally
Hinyard.
got it wrong, and I apologize for that.
Everyone does, it's fine.
Debbie Dinsbach will be next. Please proceed.
Yes, so my name's Dr. Leslie Hinyard. I am not affiliated with WashU. I am a resident of Webster Groves. I've lived here for 16 years. I am a mother of a child that has dealt with anxiety and depression. I myself have dealt with depression. And I had a whole prepared statement. And as I have listened to some of these comments, I've really kind of changed everything. We've heard about the safety. We've heard about how this is needed in the community. We've heard that it's needed in our state, but I want to call this opposition out for what it is. It is an unwarranted fear of mental illness and a really bad case of not in my backyard. This is not a facility that is a horror movie rendition of an insane asylum with children running out the doors and smashing people in the face. This is for children who are worried. We're worried about them killing themselves. Worried about them hurting themselves, of them not being able to function, and about a place where they can go and heal and learn to be productive, healthy members of our society that makes our society safer. Mental health care creates safety. It creates solid citizens who contribute. We heard from one tonight. This campus, as described, has a better safety plan than what exists today. So let's be very clear, if we leave what exists today, the safety will not be what it will be with this new proposal. I've been in the position of sitting in an emergency room with a family member, of sitting in that ER for days in a little curtain waiting for a bed to open up. I've made a call to a mother saying, your daughter confessed to my child that she's gonna go home and swallow a bottle of pills. And then that wonderful, beautiful human sat in an emergency room for 4 days before she was shipped off to Columbia to sit for a week. She could have stayed here in her community, in a safe space with trees outside and a loving space. And I want to live in a community where we don't fear children, where I don't have neighbors threatening to shoot them because they have walked on their lawn, which is what I heard earlier. And let's be very clear, that happens with lots of children, not just those that have been in a mental hospital, right? Mental health care is healthcare, full stop. We need this in our community, and let's take this opportunity to make Webster the future. Let's make Webster the site that everyone looks for, and we show these children and families that we care about them, that we care about who we love, and that we want everyone in our community to feel a place where they can be healthy and whole and contribute to us as they move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Corinne Austin, it will be next. Debbie Dinsbach.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Dinsbach. I live at 220 College Avenue. I thought the purpose of this meeting tonight was to discuss rezoning of the 330 North Fork campus, not to debate whether there's a need for mental health services in this community or not. So with that in mind, I am going to address the purpose of this meeting, which is to address the rezoning. I am not in favor of the rezoning. This proposal raises serious concerns that I urge the council to address thoroughly and with fresh eyes. My objections center around three critical areas, all of which are more fully discussed in prior letters that I have submitted for inclusion in the public record. The first one is conflict with the Webster Groves comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning directly contradicts the values and guidelines outlined in the Webster Groves comprehensive plan, which prioritizes the preservation of residential neighborhoods and historical integrity, specifically residential standards. The plan emphasizes maintaining high residential standards and minimizing disruptions such as increased traffic. Hospital-related traffic, including emergency vehicles, would negatively impact safety and quality of life, particularly for families and children. The tax base. The comprehensive plan encourages converting institutional properties to taxable use when possible. Approving this proposal would add another tax-exempt property, placing a heavier financial burden on residents. Neighborhood vitality. The comprehensive plan stresses the importance of protecting neighborhood character and vitality. A hospital in this location would detract from the residential cohesion and historical value. Number two, misalignment of the comprehensive planning team goals. The Webster Groves Comprehensive Planning Team emphasized community input to shape the city's growth. The proposed rezoning undermines several of these established goals. One, resilient neighborhoods. Introducing a hospital into this historically significant residential area disrupts its stability by undermining the character of the neighborhood and property values. It is my opinion, as well as other residents, that, and as a homeowner in this vicinity, that my property values might be negatively impacted. And no one has presented any evidence to the contrary, either to the city staff, to the Planning Commission, or in filings for this public hearing. Quality of life. Increased noise, traffic congestion, and safety risks from emergency vehicle traffic would degrade quality life for residents. Transparency and governance. The planning process highlighted inclusivity and fairness, yet the handling of this proposal raises serious transparency concerns. For example, the Plan Commission did not even address consistency with the comprehensive plan and merely accepted a bald staff conclusion without any factual presentation, analysis, or discussion. My third concern is procedural violations and transparency issues. This rezoning process has been marked by procedural irregularities and a lack of transparency, including public hearing notifications. Notices for public hearings were not published as required by law. This oversight denied residents a fair opportunity. I'm going to have a couple more seconds to participate in the process as noted in the November 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Thank you very much. I will let council know you were forwarded today the complete statement, or actually an expanded statement from Ms. Debbie
Dinsbach.
Dinsbach. I
So I can't
apologize.
continue
No,
that. We can-
since we've got it, I just wanted them to know they have it, but 3 minutes has expired. Corinne Austin and then Dr. Kaylee Bishop will follow. All right, Dr. Bishop, are you here?
Hi, all, and thank you for your time and everyone who's still here. I know it's a long one. My name is Callie Bishop. I am a resident here at wonderful Webster Groves. I live here with my husband and my two small children. I am also a child and adolescent psychiatrist with Washington University and St. Louis Children's Hospital. So I just wanted to take that opportunity, kind of the dual roles I have here, both loving Webster and also knowing that facility, to advocate for this to go through, because I feel like it is at the right location and the right partnership. One reason is that I have seen this work really well in Webster already. I worked previously at McCallum Place, which is a psychiatric facility in Webster Groves. The patients and the parents that I worked with there loved coming to this community. They loved letting their kids be able to heal here. I want to continue to give this opportunity. Also, you know, when I worked at McCallum Place, we worked really hard to make sure we were good neighbors. We shared a building with the popular Froyo Place and Robust. We built a good working relationship, so there's no reason I wouldn't think St. Louis Children's Hospital, who is nationally renowned, wouldn't do even above and beyond what a more local location could do. Furthermore, I know Robust didn't mind having us around because they did help us after some long shifts. So, you know, we do all want to work together and make this a good community. And also just as a mom, you know, I want my children to continue to grow up at a place where they can see their mom, you know, potentially working at a facility to help kids in their community. I want this to be part of them growing up. Hopefully they don't need the services I provide, but if they do, as many have said, that I want it to come here and I want to see their community leaders and, potentially me contribute to the community in that way. So I hope you consider this proposal. And again, I just want to reiterate that having worked at Children's, that at other facilities too, it is going to be safer than it is now with this proposal. So I hope a lot of the concerns that people have can be mitigated, as the plans are going to make everything just safer for both the patients and the community. So thank you for hearing us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Just an update for everyone. I have 4 cards in hand, and then we also have online comments plus any additional comments that the applicant would like to make. So what I'm going to propose to council is that we go ahead and finish our cards in hand, take a short break, and then we'll do online comments and finish out our public hearing. Is that all right with council? Okay. Rebecca Paz, and then following that, we'll have Robert Willman.
Hi, and thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. I know it's been a long night. I just wanted to talk tonight about the kids who can't speak for themselves. I had a situation with my son this past year, and we were in the ER for 3 days. Same story. And, when you're considered a psychiatric patient, you're not allowed to go to the bathroom by yourself. You're secured in by security, and they asked if he was on drugs, and it's a common question because he was so disoriented, and it was a battle for 6 months to get into a psychiatrist. It was a constant battle to figure out the medications, and when you're neurodivergent and on the spectrum, you're going to have all these different abnormalities. And so anyway, I just want to talk about the importance of healthcare and just how grateful I am to Children's Hospital. He was in the hospital for his 15th birthday. I had no idea when he got in that it would be 72 days in the hospital, going back and forth, trying to work as a single mom, trying to still be there for my daughter. And it was such a crucial time. And to have this facility 5 minutes away from my house as a resident would be just unbelievable. And I think we should, instead of being worried about the neighborhood, worried about the quality of life, we need to consider the kids' quality of life and for future generations, truly. I am forever grateful for the care that he got there. The workers became some of my dearest friends. It was such a horrible time in my life, but I am just so grateful. The security measures there were unbelievable. You had to have a passcode to get in. You had to go through normal security. You had to be on their list. If Children's Hospital is behind it, it's going to be amazing, just like they always are. So thank you for your time.
Is Mr. Willman present? All right, Dottie Hemba, and then after that, we'll have Dave Buck. Mr. Buck, I believe this means you are. I don't believe that Ms. Hemba's present, so Dave will let go. And she may appear while you're talking, but please go ahead.
Dave Buck, Colonial Village Apartments. I'm 71 years old. I've been mentally ill for 55 years, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about a word that has not been mentioned tonight, which is peace, thanks to Bob Dylan. How can you choose against KVC kids and the mental health care that they need? How can you choose against Children's Hospital and the treatment for kids that they lead? How can you choose against a community that wants compassion to succeed? The choice, my friends, is in your hands. The choice is in your hands. But how can you choose against your Northwest neighbors, proud, loyal, with a strong nerve? How can you choose against their support of the need, but seek a different location to serve? How can you choose against their primal need to protect their families and never swerve? The choice, my friends, is in your hands. The choice is in your hands. So how can you choose to vote win or lose when there is a far better way? How about choosing to mediate peace where both sides have an equal say? How about choosing a win-win outcome and restore peaceful and happier days? The choice, my friends, is in your hands. The choice is in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take another 5-minute recess, and this time it's 10 o'clock, so it makes more sense. 10:05, we'll come back. For those of you who are joining us on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment, if you would go ahead and use the raise your hand function, please. That way we'll have a good sense of how many we have, and we will simply go down the order on my screen. All right. See you. All right, thank you. Well, we've underway. All right, thank you. So we'll proceed now with public comments from our listeners online. And so what will happen is I will call your name. The clerk will give you the option to turn on your microphone by allowing you to talk. We'll ask for you to turn on your microphone. You're subject to the same 3-minute limit as those in the room. So we will start with Eric Messias, I believe, and then Holly Hofgren, you'll be next. Hofgen. Mr. Messias.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your time and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Eric Messias. I'm a psychiatrist for 25 years. And somebody earlier alluded to the problem of conflict of interest of so many colleagues from WashU and from BJC speaking. I am the chair of psychiatry at SLU, and I'm the chief psychiatrist for SSM Health. I have no interest in this specific facility. I'm here to speak on behalf of the many patients that I've seen in the many years of psychiatry that I've practiced. There is an incredible need. I've seen patients in the emergency room for days. I've sent them across state lines. It breaks my heart each time. Second, I want to address safety. In 25 years in psychiatry, one of the main things we have done is increase safety in our facilities and in the way we practice. These facilities, they have staffing ratios, they have staffing trainings, and they are built for safety. These facilities we have today and that we build today are not the facilities we had when I started doing psychiatry. They are built to keep everybody safe, staff, and mainly the children. So I'd like to support this proposition, and I'd like to ask people to give these children a chance and to give the chance for the community of Webster Grove to show its character and build this facility for all children in St. Louis and in Missouri. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Holly Hofgen, you're now allowed to talk. If you'll unmute yourself, please, and please proceed.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Okay.
Well, sorry, there we go.
I'm back.
Please
Okay.
proceed.
Okay. My name is Dr. Holly Hefkin. I am a citizen of Webster Groves. I live in North Webster Groves in the direct neighborhood of the facility. I have 3 children in the Webster Groves School District from Givens Elementary up to the high school. Myself and my family are in full support of this project for all of the reasons that have been voiced tonight. And I won't rehash all of those except to say, as a citizen living within 2 minutes of this or 2-minute walk of this facility, we're in high support of that. What I did want to say is it has been insinuated in this meeting that myself as an employee of St. Louis Children's Hospital and Washington University, that our voices may be coerced or conflicted or biased. I just want to assure everyone on this committee that our opinions are our own, and those things voiced by my colleagues, I can assure are also their own opinions. I have never been asked by St. Louis Children's Hospital or by KVC to speak on this matter, even though I live 2 minutes from the facility. Up until now, I've been supporting this initiative privately, speaking with my neighbors, addressing concerns, and dispelling a lot of misconceptions. But I just wanted to say that, do I trust St. Louis Children's Hospital 100%? Does that make me biased? I feel like it only makes us biased in the way that if I had a child who was hurt, they 100% are going to be going to St. Louis Children's Hospital because I trust my colleagues and I trust the care that they would receive. It's also why I fully trust them to improve on this facility that already exists in our neighborhood, that has existed here historically long before many of us were born, right? And this facility that, I believe there have been concerns in the past, but knowing the value of care that is given by St. Louis Children's Hospital, I 100% trust them to improve upon what is there. And I do not have any concerns about the safety of myself or my family living directly in this neighborhood. We would support the initiative, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Spiegel, you're next, and then Dana Silverblatt will follow.
Hello, this is Dr. Eric Spiegel.
Hello.
I am the medical director of psychiatry services at Children's Hospital. I started my post-residency career as working at Children's Hospital, and very shortly after that, I had to take my newborn son there to the PICU. I knew it was the best place in town to get medical care. And since then, I've dedicated my career to making it the best place in town to get your psychiatric care, and ask any pediatrician or psychiatrist it is. And we want to expand that. We want to make it better for the community. And right now, we've only got a few beds, and the kids are constrained to a very small unit where they can't even go outside. This would be a very beautiful place for them to heal. And it would be a big expansion to all the people that you're hearing that need these services. And I would love to help provide these services in this community. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, I believe Holly has already spoken. So Dana Silverblatt would be our next speaker. If you lower Holly's hand, that'll take her off the second one there. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead. We seem to have somewhere lost one of our speakers. If you would raise your hand again, please, Dana. There you are at the bottom there. Yeah, the bottom of the speakers there. So Adriana Mancuso has not had a chance to talk, so let's not lower anybody else's hand at this point. If you're online and you have not spoken and wish to, yes, please go ahead and use the raise your hand function again. All right, Dana Silverblatt, please proceed.
Okay, hopefully this works.
It does. We can hear you.
Perfect. My name is Dana Silverblatt. I work for the Behavioral Health Network of Greater St. Louis. I'm also a mom of 3 school-aged children, about to be day 19 of winter break and several snow days. I've been on this Zoom call and listened to every moment of more than 3 hours, and I just wanted to highlight that to show you how important I think this is. Kids, we've heard from so many people, and we know kids are living in emergency rooms. On any given day, an estimated 40 Missouri kids are boarded in hospital emergency departments, stuck in a system that just doesn't have the capacity to care for them the way they deserve. While they're waiting for care, they miss out on any sense of normalcy. They miss out on school and socializing with other kids, and all kinds of other things, being with their family supports that can help their healing process. And a hospital like this one proposed can alleviate so many of these issues, add capacity for care in a calm community environment, unlike sort of this sterile setting that so many are relegated to because that's all that exists. We owe our kids the best chance. I'm heartbroken for the families that we've heard who are waiting in the wings, and for the parents desperate to get the kind of help they know their precious children need and deserve in the most therapeutic setting. My heart breaks for the providers whose hands are tied right now because there's not enough capacity and there's not the continuum of care that really is needed here. When I started on this call a couple of hours ago, I bragged to friends of mine that I grew up with in St. Louis who live in Chicago, New York, and DC about the kind of facility that's being proposed here, and they were envious of this kind of facility with this breadth of care in the way that they're proposing here. And I think now more than ever, we have a responsibility and the opportunity to break down the stigma of mental health and to lift up youth and families. And I strongly urge you all to vote in support of this new proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Adriana Mancuso, I believe you are already able to speak. Go ahead, please.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm currently in opposition of this movement. I do believe that healthcare for children is extremely important. I feel there needs to be more time in this forum for there to be more research done for the safety protocols. I believe there needs to be more outreach to the residents in Webster Groves to know what those protocols may be. I am not one of those people who is in fear per se, but I do think that there needs to be more safety regards put in place before I would feel 100% comfortable to have somewhere up the street from me have a hospital setting like this. I also feel like there is not a lot of space for these families to come in if they are going to stay. We do not have hotels or motels close by, so I feel like it may cause some issues in that respect as well. So there may be some infrastructure that might need to be looked at for this to be a better situation as well. And also, I do think that this could have been handled a little bit better from a perspective of making people more aware of all of these hearings. I know personally, I did not receive some of the flyers for the previous hearings for this proposed initiative. So I just am a little disappointed in that because I would have liked to hear a little bit more in the beginning of some of this information as well. But overall, I do believe that children do need a place to go. Whether that's here, I'm not sure if that's the greatest idea just because of the respect that this is really a residential area and it has a lot of different issues that are involved with that respect. Thank you so much for your time, and I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to John Hickey. All right, John, if you'll unmute yourself, can go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the time. I have lived in Webster Groves for 24 years. I had 2 children go through the Webster schools, all the way from the early childhood center all the way through Webster Groves High School. And I 100% support this proposal. And what I'd ask the council people to think about as you consider how you're going to vote is a statistic that was shared earlier on during this event, which is that suicide is the second leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds in Missouri. And that is because we have inadequate mental health care. And that doesn't mean children who live somewhere else who are committing suicide. I'm talking about children in Webster Groves. I think the appropriate thing for the council to do is to support this proposal so that we can be the adults we are and be there for our kids and give them the services they need and that the medical best thinking calls for. So I just wanted to share that and thank you for your attention on this matter.
All right, thank you. I have on my screen someone who is referred to as JM370. You're going to be allowed to talk, and would you please state your name for the record and your address? If you'd unmute yourself. JM37042 is what appears on my screen. Yes, you're unmuted now. Please go ahead. I'm sorry, we can't hear you if you're speaking. Okay, we have one other speaker. So if you are, I'm going to give you one more try, JM37042, after we hear from our next speaker. So if you'd like to check your microphone in the meantime, that'd be probably a good idea. This is Ben, I can't see anymore. Ben Jackson. Well, thank you. You've unmuted. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Ben Jackson, and I'm a 25-year-old therapist that grew up in the Webster Groves community. I'd like to share a little bit about my best friend, Ethan Lasigno. I have fond memories of the two of us exploring his Webster Groves neighborhood and then retreating to Old Webster or Old Orchard for a bite to eat before returning to our gallivanting as only friends could. We played hockey together at the Webster Groves Ice Arena, learned to drive together on Webster streets, and witnessed so many pivotal moments of each other's lives unfold, many of those within Webster's confines. Holy Redeemer in Webster Groves is also one of the places I said goodbye to the physical form of my best friend as Ethan died by suicide on February 12th of 2009 in St. Louis, part of our community. Ethan was warm, welcoming, and joyous to those he knew and those he did not know. And while that is true, it is also true that Ethan struggled deeply with his own battles and mental health, many of which his friends and family knew little or nothing about. While some signs may have been clear to a trained professional, our inability and lack of resources to identify them is something I and those who loved him will wrestle with and hope to change for the foreseeable future. As a mental health clinician now, my life forever changed by Ethan's journey, I cannot definitively say whether or not the proposed services and facility put forth by this venture would have changed Ethan's trajectory. I'll never know. But as a clinician currently working in a mental health crisis stabilization unit for children and teens, I do know this. Had Ethan sought therapy with me and I identified him as someone that could have benefited from a higher level of care, something more than weekly individual therapy, I would have struggled to find him a bed or place to help stabilize him for 5 to 7 days in St. Louis because they were all full. I may not have been able to refer him to a 30-day residential program that focuses on mental health because there weren't enough and the few we had in St. Louis were all full. I'd then have to ask Ethan and his family, already dealing with multiple stressors, to consider sending him out of state, away from family, friends, and the learned safety that many clients need to even begin meaningful therapy. This is the reality that many of our children and adolescents from Webster, Kirkwood, Clayton, University City, and St. Louis in general are dealing with. I get that this proposal means change, and with change, understandably, comes fear about what the future could hold. If I've learned anything in my life, it's that anxiety and fear about the future often outweigh what actually occurs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, JM37042, you are unmuted. Would you try again, please?
Or Mayor Arnold, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Could you give us your name, please?
Sure. Joan Magruder, BJC Group President. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate the technology assist. Just wanted to reiterate, if I could, please, thank you for your time. Couple things. One, hopefully what you've heard tonight is that what we have proposed is very consistent with the 150-year history in terms of the mission of the campus. Second of all, we've been hopefully very deferential to the 5 criteria that you all have talked about as really the legitimate reasons to consider what we have in front of us. Importantly, not increasing the traffic or congestion, and of course, making sure we're optimizing safety from the perspective of the police and fire. Importantly, I think, as Mr. Franklin said, this is not a hospital. There just happens to not be a better word for it. It really is a mental wellness campus. It's a 1-story building. It is consistent with the residential feel of the neighborhood. And really focuses on maximizing the green space and, of course, ideal for the outcomes from the perspective of our kids that we talked about, peaceful exterior courtyard, et cetera. So really, I think hopefully what you've heard is that this is not a hospital in the sense of the connotation that people hear. There's no ER, there's no parking garage, there's no helicopter, there's no surgery. And this really will be both optimal for the care of our kids that we have so highlighted earlier tonight, and consistent really with the neighborhood feel that we want to perpetuate. I think importantly, much earlier tonight, we heard about the resident verbatim, the fact that 80% of our Webster Groves residents support this, which is really an extraordinary vote of support. We are also just want to make sure that everybody knows BJC and KVC do not take for granted being great neighbors. Our commitment is that not only tonight, but on a perpetual basis, that we really are neighbors that continue to listen, continue to collaborate, continue to iterate, and make sure that we really have a very discerning process around all of the aspects that we've talked about tonight to really create that win-win that we owe to Webster Groves and we certainly owe to our kids. Most importantly, finally, we hope that this is not just about defending the aspects that people should not fear, but honestly taking us to a yet better state. This is about betterment. This is about a world-class children's organization that's the top 10% nationally. It's about having a outpatient continuum. It's about having enhanced security. It's about having proximity to home. Many of our families tonight talked about having to go to Chicago and Cape Girardeau and many places that are a great burden to our families. And so we really want to provide this at home. We are delighted that the coalition is in support of this. We're delighted that we are committed to this community for the long run. We never want to be a burden. We always want to be an enhancement. And we are truly honored to be in front of you tonight to do the right thing for our kids, our families, and our community. Thank you, Mayor, for listening tonight and for your patience for the last several hours.
All right, thank you. We have one additional hand raised that I can see right now, and that is Tim Conway. Thank you. All right, if you'll unmute, Mr. Conway, thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can, thanks.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tim Conway. I live at 404 Bacon Avenue, directly across the street from the KVC site at the corner of Bacon Avenue and Rock Hill. And as I look out my windows, I'm reminded that several months of the year, the foliage and the landscaping that was described earlier tonight isn't going to do anything to reduce the light pollution that my neighbors and I are going to be subject to by this development. I also found it interesting seeing the map that since we've lived here for the last 30 years, there's been what I would call a setback buffer from Rock Hill Road to, the Edgewood, then the KVC buildings. And now where that new building is being proposed extremely close to Rock Hill Road. So it's funny, my wife and I were joking that we're not NIMBYs, I think we're actually NYMPHs, not in my front yard. But I appreciate the comment earlier and the reminder that this is at its core a zoning issue. And I think that raises the concern that what the council should focus on is the people, the residents who are most affected directly, who live adjacent to the property. I'm confused when people say the proposed plan doesn't change how the site is going to be used, because I believe if it wasn't going to change how the site was going to be used, we wouldn't be having these meetings where we're talking about making a zoning change. With regard to the 5 criteria for the conditional use permit, I don't believe that you can put a business into a residential area without affecting the residential area's character and the general welfare of the people that live there. So I don't think that this project meets the criteria of the conditional use permit. So I hope the council takes into consideration those of us who live immediately adjacent to the property. We've been vocal, we've been present. We live right here, and you'll consider this not the emotional issue that has been presented for several months now, but that it's simply a zoning issue, and that the people who live adjacent to the property should have the right to live without a business operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right outside their front door. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I am going to just take one moment to make sure we've lowered all hands, so if you are still online and would like a chance to talk, now is your time to raise your hand. I know we had a couple people who were in the room who were going to go home and make comments from home. I won't read your names because it's your decision whether to do that, but we just want to give you a moment if you haven't had the chance to raise your hand. I will remind everyone as well that although we'll close the public hearing tonight, I anticipate you can still contact the city council if you have additional comments to make. All right, Mr. Mugler has raised his hand, so we will allow you to talk if you'll unmute. All right, please proceed.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak. Then my neighbor, I heard Tim Conway speak, and we are very much on the same page. I do oppose this. I am a NIMFY as well, not in my front yard. I live at 403 North Rock Hill Road, at the other opposite corner of Rock Hill and Bacon Avenue. So directly across the street. I can look out my front door right now and see two bright spotlights from the campus that are pointed directly at our house. At 10:05, I was outside and I could hear someone pounding what sounded like a metal sledgehammer over on campus. Whatever that could be, who knows? Breaking ice, breaking something. It's always something over there. It's always something over there. I've lived here 35 plus years, and I've tolerated what happens, the things that happened at Edgewood, the things that happened at KVC when they first came on board. So it's not about mental health. Everybody in this room, everybody associated with this topic believes there is not enough mental health facilities in the St. Louis metro area for the kids that are affected. And there apparently are a lot. If you just took a head count from the Webster people that spoke tonight, that had kids with mental disabilities, let's say, that would fill the hospital seemingly in a day. So what's preventing this proposal, if it gets proposed and it gets approved, what's preventing this from being expanded down the road another year or 2 or 5? They're going to need more space. Oh, there's 23 acres there. They can use that. Again, it's just more and more. The bottom line from all of us that live across the street from this facility, within 500 feet, 500 yards of the facility, we are all in opposition because we don't think it fits the character of the neighborhood. In fact, it hurts the character of the neighborhood. That's all I got to say. Thank you for your time. I think the fix is in, but I guess we'll see. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I believe we now have Dottie who has raised her hand. So if we could, all right, Dottie, if you could unmute yourself. Thank you. Could you give us your full name, please?
Sure, it's Dottie Mhemba, and I live at 442 Bacon.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate all of the comments tonight, and I want to send a heartfelt, I am on the same page of, the kind of need that our community has for more regarding mental health. And, my kids too are off tomorrow, so I had to come home and tuck them in tonight. But, I want to explain why so many of our neighbors are asking for BJC to have done better in presenting this project to our neighbors. We chose to live in Webster and North Webster for the community, to protect our children, and then we have a beautiful place to raise them. We choose to pay top residential taxes and live in a community that scrutinizes changes and loves permits. I wanted to build a bigger deck and I could not because of permitting in my backyard, my own backyard. But my primary concern tonight is with the traffic study. It actually has nothing to do with the fact that this is a mental health hospital or that it's a hospital at all that wants to be built in my neighborhood, but that I think the traffic study will cause the traffic will cause a substantial increase in our neighborhood. And I just ask that the council, as well as the members of BJC, we look into figuring out more solutions around this. Bacon Avenue does not have sidewalks. Rock Hill Road, where I walk with my children to and from school, you could literally feel the cars passing by. The sidewalks are so close to the edge of the road. Rock Hill Road is a very busy road. We're terrified when we walk on it. And there are also other pinch points at the stoplights and the stop signs where people don't always stop. And just pulling out from Bacon, there's a significant blind spot pulling out onto Rock Hill Road, which was flagged in the last meeting by a traffic study engineer. And this persists as a major problem on the road and will be increased by this project. So Rock Hill Road has a traffic problem already. So the mere fact that the study didn't think it increased problems on the road doesn't address the fact that the road is a problem to begin with. The original traffic study presented a concerning findings to our community. The study passed then in its second iteration by changing the measurement tool. The traffic study is not using the default trip generation manual for hospitals. It was changed based on operations that BJC had identified, and it aligns actually with what they identify as the conditions for a nursing facility. And I heard a lot of messaging about how this project is not going to be a hospital, but it's receiving state funding because it's a hospital. And it's asking to be zoned to become a hospital. So as a mother with kids, I do have concerns about the increased traffic flow, the speeding volume on Rock Hill, and that the study has taken no responsibility to address those existing conditions in addition to the current.
Time.
Thank you. I'll just summarize there. Thank you for everybody. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to pause a minute. Okay, I believe that concludes our public comments. I'm going to let the clerks confirm for me. Okay. So at this point in time, as part of the public hearing, the applicant, Children's Hospital KVC, has the opportunity to respond to anything that you might like to elaborate. It's your option. Obviously, it's not required.
Honorable Mayor, I'll just make a few remarks. It's 10:45. Of the seven, and there were seven, there may be more that spoke in opposition. Four of those I personally reached out to on 3 occasions to have a conversation with some of their concerns. I did not get a response. I sent emails to every speaker card that I was able to get from Robert after the August hearing prior to the November hearing of the Planning Commission. There was only one response, and it was from the traffic consultant, a resident of the city of Webster Grove. He engaged in conversation. He had conversations with both Lee Cannon and Chris Beard of Lockmuir. So relative to the traffic study, I know it's sound. But with regards to when we hear outreach, it's difficult to outreach. I email the residents. It's their choice to be able to respond. I don't have a phone number. They don't have the phone number. I was criticized for reaching out to the neighbors at the last meeting, but some of the people that just spoke, I reached out prior to the November. I think Joan Magruder said it best. This is the beginning. It doesn't go away. BJC, KVC are good neighbors. You just have to communicate with them. You have to reach out to them. You have to reach out to their consultants, and they'll respond and they'll try to address questions. Landscaping, most of those campuses at BJC, we've customized the landscaping to address issues that they're raising. For example, deciduous trees versus evergreens. We can customize evergreens along North Rock Hill Road in order to create that visual barrier that they're speaking of. We'll come out and take time and look at these glaring lights that are reputedly being said here tonight and adjust those lights, the new technology. So this is the beginning. We don't go away, you know, and again, we're open for communication. I've passed my name out to so many. In addition, I believe Mr. Bratcher submitted to the city council and the mayor a list of that communication, the 14,000 flyers that went out in October. In fact, Saturday, I spent 1 hour Saturday afternoon, this past Saturday afternoon, speaking to a resident. I initially thought it was a Webster Groves resident, but it was a resident of Rock Hill. It was the online chat. She responded to it, and those all get forwarded to me, and I respond to each one of them. Do you want to talk? She took the time to talk. She was a school teacher, had been there for 40 years, and she only had good things to say and complimentary about the project. But she was a Rock Hill resident. She was just wasn't sure why Rock Hill wasn't engaged in the process of something in the city of Webster Groves. So I explained that to her. But again, we will continue to outreach. We're open. We can address those issues of visual lines and through landscaping. And again, it's a collaborative effort. It's the fear of the unknown. I see it all the time. One person summarized it. It often doesn't come to fruition. You know, the fear of the unknown does not come. But I think Joan best summed it up. We're a great neighbor. We want to continue to be a great neighbor. We want to collaborate, communicate, and address those issues that are existing today and avoid them under the site plan review. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. I'm going to hold one last moment. If there are any council member questions before we move on. I do have one question for the city attorney. The issue of conflict of interest came up. I wrote it out so I would do it properly, and now for the here it is. Okay, so bias and conflict of interest, and this is my question is in regards to the council, not to anyone who might have spoken tonight. I do recall that you have forwarded to all of us explanation of both the legal conflict of interest as well as the issue of bias in our decision making under Missouri law. Is that, do I remember that correctly? Yes.
So the question was raised earlier, said, is there a conflict of interest with some council members? So I communicated to council the Missouri ethics laws regarding conflicts of interest, which are specific to monetary conflicts of interest. And then rather than bias, I reflected on the issue of impartiality because that was then raised as well. So I communicated to each of the council members what the status of the law is in Missouri currently on both of those issues. It ultimately is an issue, a question that has to be decided by each council member. We have no way of saying you have a conflict, you can't vote, or you are not impartial, you can't vote. But every one of the council members understands those things and sent them out. They were acknowledged, and I think I covered it clearly. I think council understood.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I believe we have reached the point in time where we will ask you, the city attorney, to enter things into the record.
Having turned my microphone on, we have a very lengthy list of exhibits. And rather than read 4 pages of the list of exhibits that are being entered, what I will tell you is what we have done in all of these matters, we will do here. So going back to the original meeting, which was in July, on July the 1st of 2024, all of the documents, all of the supporting documents that would have been generated for that, including things like the PowerPoint presentations, the staff reports that would have been done, all of those will be moved to be in the record. That includes also for the City Plan Commission's meeting on August the 5th of 2024. There was another staff report that was prepared by Renee Tyler, and there are a number of supporting documents that would also be attached to that particular report and that were provided at the meeting and presented at the meeting. Those will be admitted for the record. There was also for the City Plan Commission on November the 4th of 2024, again, another staff report. There were PowerPoint presentations. There are a number of comments. Those are all recorded, all the emails that are sent in. All of those documents are going to be submitted as an exhibit for the purpose of this particular record. And then all of the documents that have been referred to tonight, including the PowerPoint presentations, all the supporting documents, all of the emails, the backups and comments, and ultimately the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves We are going to move for the admission of all those documents. We will prepare a full and complete list that will be posted online and will be attached to the minutes of this meeting. So I would move for the admission of all of those documents, Mayor, without having read them page by page by page.
All right. I think that then brings this public hearing to a close. That doesn't mean our meeting comes to a close, though. But first, before we move on from this topic, Councilmember Hasselmeyer, could you call for the first and second reading, please, of Bill number 9274?
Reading of Bill number 9274. Second.
Bill 9274, first reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map and approving 2 conditional use permits for an institution and a hospital for the property at 330 North Gore Avenue, St. Louis Children's Hospital petitioner and KVC Behavior Healthcare Missouri, Inc. property owner, and repealing ordinance 8811.
All right. Is there any discussion? I just want to state my intention to go ahead and make sure that if we have not changed the CUP to run for the applicant, I was right about that. It's late, excuse me, that I will offer an amendment next time to do so that we're consistent across both
Yes, ma'am.
the CUP and the both CUPs. Is there anything else anyone wants to discuss at this point? For those of you who are in the room and want to know how this works, we have a first and second reading tonight. We will not vote on this proposal until 2 weeks from tonight when we have the third reading. And at that time, council members will make specific statements if they choose to about the reasons for their vote in a particular way. All right. Is there any discussion at this point? All right. Let's have the second reading then, please.
Bill 9274, second reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map and approving 2 conditional use permits for an institution and a hospital for the property at 330 North Gore Avenue, St. Louis Children's Hospital petitioner and KVC Behavior Healthcare Missouri, Inc. property owner, and repealing ordinance 8811.
All right. Thank you. Believe it or not, we're back to the remarks from the community and visitors. I have no cards for anything else that's on our agenda. Please let that be true. Thank you. All right. Is there any new business? I'm not giving you all much chance here. All right. Our new business that we do have scheduled, Councilmember Alexander, could you call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9275, please?
Second reading of Bill number. I would like to call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9275.
Bill 9275, first reading. An ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation bonds, Series 2025 of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, prescribing the form and details of said bonds, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal and of the interest on said bonds as they become due, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith.
All right. Is there any discussion? Let's have the second reading, please.
Bill 9275, second reading. An ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, delivery of general obligation bonds, Series 2025 of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, prescribing the form and details of said bonds, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they become due, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Franklin, could you call for the passage of Resolution 2025-01, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to call for the reading and adoption of resolution number 2025-001.
Resolution 2025-01, authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation bonds of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri.
Is there any discussion? I believe that one we are voting on tonight.
Yes.
Let's go.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin? Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander? Councilmember Hickson Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Hasselmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Arnold?
Yes. Councilmember Bliss, or actually, is there anything anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda?
No.
All right, Councilmember Bliss, could you call for the approval of the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to call for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander. Councilmember Hickson Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Hasselmeyer.
Yes.
Mayor Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes. All right, before we adjourn, which I promise will be in a moment, I wanted to say thank you to all of our staff members who did so much work in preparing for tonight's hearing, from making sure we had capacity for anyone who wanted to be here at City Hall in person, for those who helped make the technology work. I appreciate all of the residents who came to talk about this proposal, and even the non-residents who did as well. I didn't mean to leave you all out. There's some of you that are going to the very end on Zoom there. I thank you for participating in our community that way as well. I know the weather probably turned some of you to Zoom, and we appreciate your participation nonetheless. All right, I believe unless there's anything else, I will call this meeting adjourned. Oh, I forgot to thank my colleagues. Thank you, colleagues.
All right. I'm not my desk here.
All right, we're